live stream.
Excellent.
That way we can check YouTube and y'all can make sure that it's working.
Okay.
So what hardware are you running, Bill? I can see a NVIDIA sticker.
Yeah, it's an HP Omen 15-inch. It's I don't know the model number off the top of my head.
Okay, just the hardware will do. Hardware specifications.
Okay, so it's got it had a 128 gig NVMe. I took that out and put one of those Samsung, what is it, 980 Pro NVMe's. That's 256 gig, and then it's got a second SSD that's 2 terabytes. That's a Samsung 960 Pro. It's got 32 gigs of RAM. It's got the NVIDIA GeForce GTX. And by the way, I run Arch.
Nice. How's the battery life on the Omen? I heard Arch has very poor battery life.
This particular one, I never have. I mean, I unplug it just to keep the battery from going to pot, but this is not the one I take on the road with me.
Yeah.
This one stays at home. It's my daily driver.
People that see my laptop ask me about the battery life on it, and I look at them and say it's a 17-inch laptop with 3 hard drives. I don't know.
Well, the thing I think that's going to kill this one, if I ever took it anywhere, it's a 15-inch 4K monitor, which I've ordered a 1080p monitor. I mean, I think 4K on a monitor that size is a bit of a gimmick. I mean, honestly, I'm going to replace it with a 1080p. My daughter has an Omen that looks identical to this one, but is far lower on the power scale, and it has a 1080p, and I just ordered a monitor for that one because it should plug and play just fine.
Hopefully.
But I mean, just the faffing around that you've got to do to get 4K monitors to look right, you got to blow everything up to 200% anyway, so you might as well just go with a 1080p like a normal person.
So my hardware is a Acer Aspire 2021 series, AMD Ryzen 5th gen, Ryzen 5. Still Arch is not able to run as optimized as one would like on it.
Oh yeah, I've got the i7. I think it's a 9th gen i7 in this.
Okay, it's similar to my brother's specification. He has a 8th gen i7 on his Aspire.
Yeah.
What graphics card does it have built in?
He has a 3 GB 1050 GTX 1050 from 20.
Oh, the 1050?
Yes.
Okay.
So this is an i7 6700 HQ, 8 cores at 3.5 gigahertz, and it's got the GeForce GTX 965M.
Oh, that's pretty old, like before 2017 or something? Pre-2017 model?
I bought this used. I buy a lot of stuff from like pawn shops and stuff because most of the time I feel like they don't know what they have. And
if you don't mind my asking, how much did you end up paying for it?
$236.
Damn, that's good.
Yeah, no, that's why I do it. I bought. There's probably about 7 laptops in the house. I bought every single one of them from.
I mean, the 965M is really playable. I mean, some of your newest games won't do well on it, but well, they won't do top-end graphics on it, but it's still really good.
Yeah.
How about
Go ahead.
How about the Linux support for 965M? I thought they phased out support for older GPUs.
Well, I'm running the 960.
Yeah, Steam runs just fine. I play like Halo Master Chief plays perfectly well.
Did you?
You might get a little bit of a glitch here and there, but it's for the most part it's unnoticeable, the difference.
Did you have any problems with the hybrid graphics?
So, okay, so when I was running under X, if you use, with Arch, you've always got so many choices, but the Optimus, if you use it the hard way, where you've got to, log out, log back in, or reboot, and choose one, and then go back between one and the other, it worked fine. Wayland, I'm running the Plasma Wayland session, and I've been doing that for about 6 months now. Wayland just seems to know. I could be wrong on this, and I invite somebody to try and prove me wrong, but it just seems to know that when I'm doing desktop stuff, just use the Intel, and when I'm running a game, use the NVIDIA.
No.
I wouldn't recommend Plasma on Wayland yet. It's still a bit unstable, I think.
Yeah, I know. It seems to be working pretty good. Every now and then I'll have a strange issue with cut and paste or copy and paste on Firefox or something, but I think even that might be becoming a thing of the past. It's getting a lot better. And running Arch, any improvements that are made, you're going to have them right away. And that's kind of the reason I run it, so that I can keep up with things like Wayland and Pipewire. I'm not actually using Pipewire right now. I didn't want to mess with that if I was doing this, but it's a good way to keep up on anything that's going on that's new.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Can agree with that on the Arch part.
Yeah.
Oh,
How's
hey
it going,
Josh.
Josh?
Hello.
How do we label the two Joshes? Josh 1 and Josh 2 for this tree?
We are a collective. We are just Josh. We're a hive mind.
Exactly.
Hey
We are
Josh,
one.
how is it going?
Pretty good. Not too bad.
Long
Finally
time
done
no
this.
see.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, it's been crazy for me. Finally got done with school, so got some free time now.
Good deal. Touch on the last distro hoppers. That turned out pretty good.
Yeah, I thought it went pretty well.
Yeah.
So, what's new in your life of Linux hopping and distro trying?
Me?
Yes.
Not too much really. I mean, I do distro hop quite a bit, including right before shows, most of the time. Well, right now I'm on Fedora, so I'm kind of sticking with that. I think I'm going to stick with that for a while because I like it a lot.
Fedora's
Oh,
pretty
and
cool.
how are the cats doing, Josh?
The cats? Oh, they're great. Attack my
Okay.
feet once in a while, but other than that, they're good.
So, how is Fedora treating you? I mean, how is Fedora treating you, or you are treating Fedora?
Well, I haven't really did too much gaming on it yet. I mean, I did before, but not on 35. I'm assuming it's probably going to be about the same. So, but other than that, it's really nice. I do have to add some extensions to it, but not too many, just 2.
Okay.
Oh, you're
my
talking about Gnome Extensions?
Yeah.
Yeah. I run GNOME on my laptop I take on the road, and with all of the drama going on, I've been trying to I decided, okay, let me go ahead and try the GNOME Experience without any extensions. And it's an
Yeah.
it's an exercise in, well, it's ridiculous. I don't know, but
Yeah.
it does perform better. I got to say that, that some of the stuff is a little snappier, a little less glitchy. It seems like it's
What
running
version
the way.
are you using?
Oh gosh, whatever is the latest, because it's
30,
also
41?
Arch. Yeah, yeah, 41.
Oh, I just
Yeah.
ran 42 or on some distro.
Yeah, I haven't got up that kind of nerve yet.
No, I mean, I didn't install it. It came by default with a distro 42. 41
did
or-
it?
Sorry, 41 or 42, which I don't remember. Like after an upgrade, it went to 42.
Because I think 42's in. I thought it was in beta, but I could be wrong.
No.
It is in beta.
By the way, Joe, stream's looking good. Sounds all right on this end.
Awesome.
Oh wait. Who?
I found a Python script for my headphones to change the color of the LED.
Oh,
I
check
found it
that out.
yesterday. So
Nice.
I have to go in and analyze this guy's code and modify it so that it'll actually do what I want to, and just be able to, change it to whatever color. I just haven't had a chance to go through it yet. And I had to go in and I modified it, just added a simple while loop so that it would go through the colors instead of just transitioning one time and going to red and staying there.
Ah. You got
I
that
had
nice
noticed
unicorn vomit.
I had noticed it until you mentioned it, and now I can't get my eyes off of it.
Yeah.
So, Josh, how's the Predator working?
Oh, I actually just got it back from what do you want to call it? Repairing their screen, and I want to give it some time still, but basically there was some light bleed on the screen, pretty much at the top, towards the middle of the screen, and it was pretty bad. So I decided to, send it in for repair, and I just got it back. And the light bleed is no longer in the center of the top; it's on the corners now.
Yeah.
I knew this was gonna happen. I knew it was gonna happen because they always do that. They just replace it with another panel that has the same problem. They say, "Oh, we tested it. It passed all of our tests, just like the one I had." I'm like, "Okay, whatever."
No, it
It's
didn't
not as
happen to
bad
me.
though.
It didn't happen to me with the screen, but it happened to my charger. Like 2 days after I switched on my Aspire, charger went, and then they
Oh, that
exchanged it under
sucks.
warranty. It
Mm.
took them 1 week to do that, and I was literally sitting without a system till about one
I
week.
don't think this charger is gonna go anytime soon. This thing's a beast. This thing is huge.
No,
It's
actually,
like 240 watts.
what was the issue
Wow.
with the charger was that it short circuited due to
Oh.
sudden fluctuations. So they exchanged it. Hey, Norbert.
Hey,
I'm here for once.
yeah.
Yeah, we're getting the old crew and new crew all together, huh? An
Excellent.
intermediate crew.
I was gonna say
guess.
intermediate crew, maybe for me.
We're kind of 3 deep right now.
After talking to Josh through Telegram, it's like seeing him after a long time. I remember the initial shows which I used to attend with you guys. He was always on at that time.
Yeah.
Yeah, things just got too crazy for me, like I said.
School's
think
open?
I think it's now just Bo and Mouse that I don't know how they look like.
I don't know. I messaged Bo and I didn't hear anything back, so I don't know if he's gonna be on.
He's probably busy. We just recorded Crowbar Kernel Panic last night, so he's probably just relaxing.
Yeah.
So it's all about gaming, I believe. I have seen a few episodes here and there.
Yeah, pretty much. We do talk a little bit about Linux once in a while, but we try to focus it on gaming.
It's mainly Linux gaming, from what I understood from one word. So whenever I need some information, I always watch Crowbar Kernel Panic to understand.
Yeah,
Well,
'cause
thank you.
Crowbar is a Half-Life reference, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
Oh,
Yep,
that
that's what we were
default
going with.
weapon? That default weapon
Yep.
in
The
Half-Life?
default weapon. Yep.
Yep.
Well, Pop OS has been just amazing, the new one so far. Can't
What
complain.
version are you on?
2110, as soon as it released.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So
I
Bill,
like
you went with
Pop a
the
lot.
Samsung Night? Or I'm sorry, Josh.
No, you're
I didn't
good.
mean
Go
to
ahead.
interrupt.
No, go ahead.
I was just
You're
gonna ask Bill. You went with the Samsung mic, Q2U.
Yes, I literally just hit the order button on that link that you shared with me, and it came. I'm using the headphones that came with it. I don't know. I might replace these at some point. But I did also. I got a Tuga E22 interface, and I was having trouble getting that working. I just haven't had time to sit down and mess with this as much as I wanted to. But right now it's just
USB
feed
interface.
into the
Well, that sounds really good for a USB
Yeah, I was
mic.
gonna say it sounds really good.
Good.
I'm probably gonna have to
with
order a Q2U.
I mean, I was surprising at the price of it. I mean, by itself, I think it was even less. But you know, the whole kit was $99.95, and that's less than I thought I was gonna have to pay. So
Yeah, well, when
Yeah,
you said
that'd
you
be
didn't
good
have
price.
anything, you needed everything for the setup. I just went and found that link for, you know, the pop filter and then the stand and everything else, and sent that
Yeah.
to you.
Yeah, it's good to get everything at once.
oh yeah, I did
Yeah.
get the stand and the pop builder that was listed at the bottom with the buy these 3 things together, and oh shoot, bunch of wires. Literally, the wires literally got delivered this morning, about an hour before we started
Oh
recording.
wow.
So I mean, you talk about
Happens.
stress. I tell you what, thank God for Amazon.
I
don't
know,
know
right?
where we'd be, especially us geeks. I don't know how much money I've spent from
I don't
Amazon.
look.
This-
Okay. Josh, we were talking about Fedora, right? Over the Josh.
Yeah,
Which
Fedora.
Josh?
me.
There you go.
Yes. The one who uses Fedora as his daily driver. We were
You have to
talking about
change your
Fedora,
name.
right?
He was on first, so I think I'll have to change mine.
No, there-
So we were
He's
talking
got
about
seniority.
using Fedora as a daily driver. I went to their social hour meet, met Matt Miller and Ben Cotton, the
Oh yeah.
Red Hat guys, and they're telling they use ThinkPad across the Red Hat organization for development of Fedora and Linux
Which
and
ThinkPads?
enterprise Linux. No, I mean different models of ThinkPad like X series, T series. So basically now we know why ThinkPad has more support because Linux developers use them.
Oh yeah. Yeah. That's definitely true because I know a lot of people who are in the different communities that have ThinkPads. A lot of them.
oh,
So plus,
People
and
are-
good thing which came out of that was I'm going to start contributing. I'm going to start contributing to Fedora bit by bit and go all the way up.
I have a
Yeah,
that's
ThinkPad
good.
somewhere, but it's like an X120E, so it's not really, usable for anything other than
It's still a ThinkPad though. It counts.
RetroArch.
That's right.
It's really useful for RetroArch.
Hey, there you go.
Yeah.
I
I'm
think
planning.
though. I think Popey has a ThinkPad for every single developer though. If you ever watched
Oh
a
my
bunch of
God.
podcasts.
ThinkPad corner.
I think I'm going
man.
to invest 25,000 in a second-hand ThinkPad soon. I need a secondary laptop.
Honestly, I would just keep an eye on local marketplaces and wait until you find one broken and then fix it.
Yep.
Yeah,
Oh.
most of the time the broken ones are like not even broke. They're just somebody did something stupid and they didn't, pull the USB out and they
Or it's a bad
I
RAM
ran into
stick.
that a lot.
But in
or
India,
the battery, yeah.
RAM
in
stick.
India, it's
Usually-
more costly to fix things than buy second-hand off the shelf.
Sometimes it says broken, but what that really means is Windows won't work anymore
Exactly.
because of some garbage, and so you get it for next to nothing. Oh, look at that. Linux runs just fine.
Yeah,
I think Windows not working is the default behavior for Windows.
I know Windows 11 is out now, but once it
Yeah, I've got
really hits the market, I expect a bunch of secondhand devices to come out at a much lower cost.
It's interesting because I've got that whole time all this drama about the TCM and the secure boot and all that. You can't really run any of that with Arch
Oh, okay.
unless you want to go through the trouble of signing all your modules and everything every time you do an update.
Heads up, guys. Heads up.
and-
About Windows 11, it does not allow dual booting at all. I tried Fedora
Well,
in Windows
tell
11.
that to this computer because I installed it. It says your system is not. I can't remember exactly how it's worded, but
Compatible?
it's not compatible with Windows 11. And then it went ahead and installed it, and it runs just fine. So it complains and then just does it.
Yeah,
And it
so the
updates,
same
too.
for mine. I tried it. Joe, I picked up Borderlands 2, like I said in
Yeah,
the
I
chat.
saw
So
that.
I decided I was gonna install it on the Windows side just to see, test this FreeSync monitor and everything. And the first thing that happened when I was updating Windows 10 was it gave me a warning message saying that my device was not fit to run Windows 11 or whatever that warning is. Ridiculous.
Honestly,
It's
as well as Borderlands
it's not
2,
cutting edge.
yeah, as well as Borderlands 2 now runs on Linux, I have to check Borderlands 3 as well as those two run on Linux through Proton.
Those are platinum.
I'm willing to get rid of my Windows instance
Those are platinum on Proton DB if you check.
now.
Yeah.
For the longest time.
I just use Windows.
I have this Surface, Microsoft Surface, and the nicest thing about when I moved from Arch to Fedora is because Fedora has supports Secure Boot by default, but if I turn Secure Boot off, then the boot screen turns from a black one to this bright red.
That's cool.
Yeah, and
You got touchscreen working on that?
Yep.
With
No.
I about said Arch with
Fedora.
Linux.
I don't know what the deal
Oh,
is
wow.
right now, but I have seen just a plethora of Surface devices, each generation, all the way up to 6 on the Facebook Marketplace recently.
Is it
They're
worth?
not.
Is it worth
Pretty
to buy a new
responsive.
Surface device just for Linux?
With
I like-
a brand
I
new
like it.
Surface, you're better off waiting until the next generation comes out. It gives some time for developers to actually get the kernel properly working for that device. Honestly,
Okay.
for the price of the Surface, you're getting more out of the Dell lines than you are the Surface lines when it comes to using Linux.
Okay.
They have a custom Surface kernel. I'm not sure if it's visible.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
Surface.xc35.
It's
Mhm.
very
Cool.
new.
And
Very
it's
new.
even very up to date.
But you do have to run a custom kernel on it then. You can't- you-
Mainly for Wi-Fi. They used to be years ago. Allegedly, there was problems with
Touch.
suspend with the
Suspend.
no, and also that. But I've been running the default kernel for months, and the only problem I think I had was Wi-Fi. Sometimes it would just go when I have to reboot. But with the Surface kernel, I don't have that either. So
Yeah, with
it's-
a lot of tablet-style devices, there are issues with sleep and hibernation, and I found that the best way is to like set up a custom sleep essentially with hybrid mode.
Wow, so much setup on the Surface.
Yeah. Well, as much as I like Gnome, and I pretty much only use it on this device because the gestures it has for the touchpad works on the screen as well. I can
That's so nice.
yes with 3 fingers. Yeah, sorry. And sometimes it's just stops working for some reason, and it's
When you want to show it off, it stops working.
Yeah.
don't know what it is.
Works perfectly until you're showing it to someone else.
So,
These times I
Josh,
have
what are you running on your other hardware?
On all of it, or just this one? That I'm
The
talking to you
different
on?
hardware.
Let's see here. I think, well, I on my Predator, I got actually Windows 11 on it right now because I just wanted to test it out because I figured, oh, you know what? They put their stock Windows 10 crap on it, and it's like got so much bloatware on it. I
You
just
know what?
immediately wiped that out.
You know what I did after upgrade? I just took a Windows 11 ISO and then wiped every crap.
That's
install
exactly what I
software.
did.
Okay, so do you have any issues with the processor fan staying 100% on Windows 11? In my AMD, it happens a lot.
No, mine's pretty good. I've not noticed that at all. With the software they give you, it only works on Windows, but you can change the fan speeds and stuff, and it pretty much ramps up as needed.
For me, it stays at 100% occupancy all the time, and it gets heated. The panel
I
near
have-
the monitor gets heated up.
I have a turbo button that just basically puts the fans all the way up, but
Ooh,
no,
the
other than
turbo
that-
button.
There's a difference
Yeah,
between
that's
your
a
laptop and
throwback.
mine. Actually, there's a big difference. Mine is a mid-range.
Right.
But you're
And
having
yours is a
overheating
top-end-
problems with it?
On Windows 11. Never
Ah.
had it on Windows 10. It's like one of those bugs which they mentioned in the beta testing. Like it'll.
It's those rounded corners.
Yeah. Does that account for the 28% drop in gaming performance as well, the rounded corners?
Well, it's all those
Nobody
Intel
ever talks about-
mitigations.
Don't forget that now Mint will also get the rounded corners.
Plus the
Oh yeah, that's right.
they say that the RAM is occupied always. Like when I'm gaming, multiple games with Discord and one Chrome, Firefox, it's always occupied completely, the RAM on Windows 11. So
That's
when,
weird. That
for
must be a
example,
bug with your thing specifically, because I'm definitely not having that issue.
so mid-range versus again top-end gaming laptop,
But
Okay.
how much RAM do you have?
8 GB.
So now this is working.
Awesome.
Cool.
That is really cool.
I have
And the biggest thing about GNOME is that it has the dynamically appearing. Sorry.
both.
The keyboard?
Keyboard.
That's nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
It looks like a
And
pretty nice keyboard. It looks like it's spaced out pretty good and everything.
Yeah.
Well, you can get
my only gripe
onboard
is
to
that
do that.
it doesn't have the number row always visible, so I have to
Oh,
change.
so is it similar something to like Android not having the number row on top?
Yeah, but I have to confess on Android I use the keyboard because it's Google, but it's really convenient. And there you
Yeah.
can there you can turn on the number row.
Mhm.
And I also like to remove the rectangle borders around
Yeah.
the keys, so it's just a plain field with letters on it.
Okay, so Josh, I have 8 gigs of RAM with option to put
Oh.
in more one slot template.
So it probably you probably just have one stick of 8 gigs. My wife's computer had that same thing, and I put another 8 gigs in, and that really actually helped a lot.
Oh, let's see. Now I'm on Linux, so not an issue. But if I go back to Windows, I'll definitely upgrade my.
Yeah, she's on Windows
RAM.
too, so I'm not upgrading hers to Windows 11 until it's like fixed, if that's ever true.
But on my that IdeaPad, it's working like smoothly. IdeaPad Flex 5 with the latest Intel Core series. 10 Gen or 11 Gen Intel Core i5 with the touchscreen, and it's working like perfectly.
Good.
Well, I gotta say, Windows 11. One thing nobody's talked about yet is that they've gotten rid of those silly live tiles.
That is
Oh,
introduced. Yeah, they got rid of that. Went back to. I mean, it's not like they went back to the Windows 7.
no, not at all.
Worked
You
well,
know,
but
one thing which
Windows
One-
11 start menu is really not space efficient at all.
no.
one thing.
No, I agree.
Did they take inspiration from Cosmic Desktop for the center line thing?
Obviously, but as long as I mean, the way I see whenever a company steals something from another company, like a design or something, if they implement it well, then I don't mind people stealing stuff because that's
By the way,
only
no,
driving.
but
Yep.
did you know that Apple stole some part of Windows design?
The
Exactly.
Microsoft also stole from Apple, but I don't care as long as both of the systems improve.
You just gave
Shocker.
Joe a heart attack. Take it easy.
Apple
it's
stole
the truth.
something?
So
Shock horror.
why would Bill Gates sue Steve Jobs in the 1970s?
Sorry, say that again?
I'm not as familiar with the Apple and Microsoft doing stuff in the days. Admittedly, I should be, but
Can't you still dig into Apple's code, Mac's code, and find all the BSD that's buried deep in there?
yeah, but they're
Oh, yeah.
they're not trying to hide or deny that it's BSD. Are they?
Exactly.
That's why they went to BSD. That way they didn't have to hide it.
Right.
Going back to Windows 1.0 and Windows 3.0. Apple Computer versus Microsoft Corp. 1994 case.
Oh, okay.
Copyright infringement. The GUI.
Imagine all the innovation these companies would have if they was spending less time in court, and more time in the lab.
I agree. I agree.
It's laughable sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Microsoft is kind of like a crack addict. They'll steal all your stuff and then sell it back to you.
No, I would simply say that They could sort it out one to one.
Well, Mac will do the exact same thing, but then claim that they're the first ones that ever did it.
Right.
Yeah.
I have a professor at the university. He sometimes shares his screen during classes, and he uses a Mac. But my impression of Mac OS, and especially when he's using the terminal, it's like it's a less good implementation of Linux, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I really don't find macOS intuitive at all, especially how their maximize window button is not really a maximize button, but a smart fit to the contents of the window button thing.
The only thing that saves them there is the touchpad gestures, because if it wasn't for that, then it would be totally useless.
You know, Josh, I would just buy Mac M1 for the hardware now that it's getting Linux support.
I'd still wait on that too, because it's still very early stages.
Yeah.
They don't even have hardware acceleration yet.
Yeah.
I'm waiting for it. If it gets any better on M1, I would definitely buy the Mac hardware.
I mean, Mac.
Last thing I heard.
Go ahead.
Last thing I heard that they don't have hardware acceleration, but the software acceleration is so good on this thing that it outperforms some mid to modest range equipment out there with hardware support. Which, I mean, I suppose if you're going to spend over $1,000 for a laptop, I would want it to perform well.
This is the first time in a long time that it's actually been somewhat worth it to buy a Mac.
I guess.
Yes, but if you're paying for it, you might as well expect to have hardware acceleration on Linux. So within the next week they should get around doing that.
Yeah, but I wouldn't buy it for Linux right now.
Yeah.
Take that same money and buy a regular PC, and you're going to get one heck of a machine.
I mean, the nicest thing about Macs is definitely the screen quality.
Yeah.
I mean, even your older Macs have exceptional screen quality. So.
Yeah, I have a 2010 Mac, and that thing, the screen is still beautiful. Like, it's only, I think it's like 900p or something like that, and it still sometimes looks better than my 1080p screens.
My son still has an original iPad, and the screen on that still it's amazing. Wow.
Does the battery still work?
Yeah, battery still works on
it. With an iPad, the battery is gone.
I don't know what the deal is with it, but the battery is still really good on it.
Wow, that must have been a really good unit then.
Yeah.
What year
I think
was
it's
it?
in a green case sitting over there right now. But,
2011?
I'm not sure.
I don't know about the iPad.
I got it secondhand. It might have, had a battery in it. I got it in a lot because, I'd never go out of my way to buy an iPad. But I got it with a lot with a Dell Venue 8 because I really wanted the Dell Venue 8.
You got 4 devices for $100.
Yeah, we ended up with 4 separate devices for $100, and one of them happened to be that iPad, and I gave it to my son. Oh, wow. The only problem is that it's really hard to get software on there now. Because it's not really supported by Apple anymore. So
right.
And they changed the store.
Therein lies the rub.
Yeah.
The walled garden.
Yeah. Nonsense.
You mentioned how some people might be better off, instead of buying the new MacBook Pro, buying another computer that's not Apple and have a better time. But I mean, when you consider they are called the MacBook Pro for a reason. I mean, when I've seen the numbers, the amount of performance they crammed into this, especially the M1 Max chips, I'm not sure if I would have the need for that much performance in a laptop, at least. I mean, the most performance-heavy thing I do is 1080p video editing, not even 4K.
Yeah, you don't need that kind of performance, but you sure as heck want that kind of performance.
Maybe for that money, I could buy 2 ThinkPads, 2 latest, greatest ThinkPads, or something.
Yeah. Latest and greatest ThinkPads.
There's a kind of a silly issue I have with the MacBooks. I don't like how they look like. All of Apple's hardware looks like jewelry to me, and I'm not really interested in jewelry. So what I would like to have
symbol as much as
is,
anything else.
If I could put together my perfect laptop, assuming that they get all of the Linux compatibility worked out, I might go with an M1 chip, but I would like it in something that looks like maybe a ThinkPad or Dell. something. I mean, I would prefer it to be in a completely black laptop. And I just don't like the silvery, shiny.
My
MacBook
perfect
design.
laptop is probably going to have either an i7 or an i9 in it, but I don't think they make laptops
No,
with
Drew.
i9s in them.
My argument for the M1 is battery life.
Wrong choice of processors. AMD is the way to go right now.
You're not
mean,
going to
if I
get an
could-
argument with me out of that one. The AMD's probably a little bit better. It's just I'm more familiar with the Intel line of processors than I am the
Sorry
AMD
about
line
that.
of
I'm more
processors.
of a AMD supporter.
Silly
since I bought
question.
it.
Silly question. If you want to have an AMD graphics card, does it make a difference whether you go AMD or Intel with the CPU?
Not really.
Compatibility-wise, performance-wise?
No.
That
Nope.
makes sense.
So if I would build a PC, I would have both. Like I would have, like right now on laptop I have AMD. For my desktop I would go for Intel. That's not a problem. But for laptops, AMD.
Wasn't it
Best
the Acer
Buy's got
Predator that was...
a-
Oh, go ahead.
Best Buy's got an MSI with an i9 in it, and
Love the MSIs.
Lenovo Yoga 9. That's got an i9. Two Apples, of course.
Is that MSI a 17-inch? Because I prefer a 17-inch laptop.
17.3.
Perfect.
Yeah, that's a
And
big,
Oh my god.
blocky looking thing.
I assume it's the
Yeah, if I go
RTX
back, I would've got that
3060, and that it costs $3,000 to start.
Yeah.
3,500.
1,999.99.
Oh, that's less than I thought.
Yeah, I thought it was gonna be more than
bargain basement, man. Gosh.
Yeah, that's a good
Give
price.
me two of them.
that. Bargain
One-
base.
Wait, you guys can afford that much. I can't even afford
Oh
one.
no. We're joking
thing's
around.
got an
I'm not dropping
NVIDIA
$2,000 on a laptop. I'll
Yeah.
get stabbed.
This thing's got an RTX 3070.
You see
in
that
it.
broken wrist? You already tried to click on the buy it now
Right?
button.
Oh,
Oh, they give you a month of Xbox Game Pass. Wow.
Ooh.
that all
Uh.
Windows does. That all Windows does.
Yeah.
All Microsoft things.
Yeah. Well, nobody from GNU or Linux Foundation is going and offering money to these places.
No, you don't need to offer money to anyone to run Linux. Example is System 76. They give you 3070 or 3050 with their hardware.
Yeah.
NVIDIA RTX.
Do you think there's any System 76 computers out there in the world that someone put Windows on it? And just only
I'm
Windows?
sure.
I mean,
I'm sure
Oh,
there's
yeah.
They
someone
do, but they
that
don't
did
talk
it.
about it.
yeah.
Maybe their development machines which require Windows specific compilers use Windows. You never know.
You end up in the wall of shame.
One more thing
You
about one more thing about GNOME. A lot of people tend to complain about GNOME's resource usage. I always do a minimal install and then only install the absolute minimal dependencies for GNOME shell. I just did a reboot and this is my RAM usage. Sorry.
No, it is the
The
standard RAM.
lightest I've ever seen.
No, this is the standard RAM usage on GNOME.
And it's GNOME.
After you install GNOME, you do a fresh install of any distro running GNOME, you will get 600 to 800
Yeah.
MB on the
But-
boot up.
After some I tried Fedora on the desktop. Maybe after an hour of usage, when I would close everything, it would just be around 1 gig of RAM usage. And on this one, with the minimal installation, I think it never really goes above 700 or 800, even when I close everything. It's a good thing because it only has 4 gigs of RAM, and it's not
Yeah,
really.
that's-
I mean,
that's nice.
I'm not sure if it's replaceable. I have a friend who specializes in fixing and he's trading, and he buys and sells surfaces, and he recommends not to open up with these, even for like switching out storage. So
No,
I also
I've-
got it second, and he said I should be
That's
happy
too
with it.
bad.
Especially with
I
some of
should
the
be happy
early
with it as long
models.
as it runs.
Yeah, especially with some of the early models. I saw the crazy things some people did to try and
it's-
replace of the Surface, of
Surface
trying to
Pro 3,
replace
so it is an
the
early
hard
model.
drive in it, and like having to rip it open to be able to do it.
Okay. Coming to Josh's things on repairing things, I have a Dell laptop lying around which used to run Ubuntu. i3 4th gen laptop. So should I just go ahead and repair it? Because the place where they put in the hard disk, that pin has come out completely.
That shouldn't be a difficult fix.
Yeah.
No.
It's just a flat wire connecting to the motherboard, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the SATA wire, something kind of like
I
old
might
hard
have
disk.
one or two of them here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Who knows what I have? Freaking, I have so much crap.
Oh
So many
God.
wires.
No, I mean to say it's like yellow wires or something, yellow color strip, which you use the hard disk, the older SATA to connect to.
You know, I don't have any
So
new
is it
hardware, but what I did
is
get
it-
is a new fat guy chair.
Yeah,
and this
SATA.
is so nice.
Yes.
SATA hard drive it was.
A PATA
I
hard
know, I should've
drive,
skipped
so
some
it's
of
an
my
IDE
hardware.
connector.
Yeah, it used to connect with this, what do you call that
IDE.
clip-like thing. Yeah.
Is it SATA or IDE?
I think it's a PATA, which is an IDE connector.
Okay.
So that would, I think, should I restore that? It only has 4 gigabytes of RAM on it.
You know,
DDR2.
if it doesn't cost you anything to fix it, then why not fix it for the sake of fixing it?
I
i3
would probably
fourth.
go to a computer shop and get it fixed.
Well, then the answer is no. You should try it yourself. I mean, if you're not using it anyway, then try and fix it yourself. And if you fail completely, what have you lost?
It's an 8-year-old laptop, so I don't
It's
want
also
to
an i3 4th gen, which falls in my list of not really usable.
Yeah.
with Linux also on board.
Well, it'll run, but it's not even gonna do internet very well. I mean, it's gonna be slow.
It was running Ubuntu with all those heavy GNOME stuff very well on it. It's a Ubuntu certified laptop.
Then go for it. Go for the fix.
Yeah.
Okay.
How old did you say it was?
8 years old. I bought it when I was in college around 20.
8 years old?
Yes, 2014, 2015 model, yes.
Yeah.
Maybe put in
Go for it.
XFCE, maybe put in XFCE or i3WM.
Yeah, I'm using my X220 with MX Linux, and it runs fine. I don't have any problem. That's a 2nd gen.
Yeah, I don't mind running 4th gen hardware. It's just not usually the i3 that I would go for. I would consider the i5 and the
Right.
i7 of the 4th gen to be very usable. Not so much the
Okay.
i3 for me.
But considering it ran Ubuntu, it has come a long way, I think.
I think I would put something XFCE on it.
Or i3WM,
Or
or the window
Yes.
manager.
Mate.
Oh yeah, if
Stay
you're a
away
wild
from
man,
your
go
mom.
that.
Norbert, we couldn't hear you when you were talking a second ago.
Okay. Nishant, can I give you some advice? You should try. Have you ever run plain Debian?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because Debian with XFC has very low resource usage.
Or
I have
I
MX.
have
used
it on my
XFCE.
laptop.
You could toss MX
So
on
if,
there.
that's what I wanted to say first, but then I realized that Debian is just as good. So I have Debian with XFC on my laptop.
Okay.
So if when low spec hardware comes up, that's my first recommendation.
Okay.
Also, I'm running Fedora GNOME on 4th Gen i5 on this, and it runs reasonably well.
That's what Joe said. If it was an i5 or i7, it would have
Yep.
been good.
Yeah.
Although, do be careful with Debian. The whole Firefox thing has led to
sorry, I
people
forgot to
I was
mention-
getting
speculating.
ready to mention that. Yeah.
No, if you go Debian, go straight to the install Debian and then upgrade it to testing.
Okay.
Or SID.
The
Go
Debian,
for it.
Just
maybe-
go
maybe-
for
Do
it.
it. Do it.
maybe
I'll just
testing
go for
has.
it.
Maybe testing gets more attention, so
Well-
I would say testing.
Well,
Yeah, testing
let's
definitely
get the
could be
hardware fixed first, and then we'll worry about what we're going to put on it.
That's true.
Should I replace the mechanical hard disk with a SATA SSD?
If it's a PATA connection, if it's an IDE connection, the longer strip connection instead of the little mini SATA connection, then no, you should not, because you can't.
Okay. How do I describe that? It's very confusing.
Well, you have a camera.
Yeah, so SATA's thin and the IDE are like ribbon cables from back in the day.
I think
Wait, give me 1 minute. Let me find where that laptop is.
I have a friend whose girlfriend's Surface Pro 4 had some issue that I think was supposed to be covered by warranty, but Microsoft refused to fix it. So he tried to fix it himself. I think I'm not sure what he needed to replace, but he ended up, I think, tearing a ribbon cable. So then he had to bring it to my other friend who I mentioned, who specializes in surfaces, and have him fix it. And I think he did it. He was the guy who, the surface guy also said that even professional people who fix surfaces, I mean, the success ratio isn't even like maybe 6 out of 10, but 7 out of 10. So there's, I might be off there, but yeah, surfaces are pretty hard to take apart and fix.
Yeah.
This is why I would never have paid full price for this.
Yeah.
Which is one of the reasons I like the Dells so much. All of them are basically made to be taken apart and have parts replaced on them.
I got this for around $200.
Can't complain then.
Yeah, can't complain about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was even from a guy who was selling like 8 of these. So he was also someone who buys and sells surfaces.
Well, if one falls into my lap, either 3rd gen or newer, then, you know, I'm definitely not going to complain. Well, if a 1st gen fell into my lap, I really wouldn't complain either.
After looking up some of the tablets that you mentioned, started to think that maybe the Surface isn't the best tablet for Linux.
It's not.
Because, yeah, I mean, even if I consider how it's definitely bigger and heavier than my... I had a Galaxy Tab 10-inch for 5 years from about 2016, and I think the battery died, but I'm not sure. Something died in it. But I could buy a new battery for it, but maybe if it ends up being something else, then I just have an extra battery that I paid for, so it's just sitting at the table.
Yeah.
But what I'm missing from this that I really like about the Samsung one is the AMOLED screen for reading and stuff.
Joe, do you see the small white strip on the SSD?
No.
On that one?
I don't see anything. Your camera's turned off.
No, it's on general. I posted a
okay.
screenshot
Okay,
of the disassembly video of a Watch Pro 3558. See this like white strip thing on the SSD? The same connector.
Oh, okay. It's the power connector.
Oh.
If it's the wider cable and not the shorter cable, that makes it the power connector, right?
Okay. Yeah, it's the similar one which came out.
So then, yeah, you can put an SSD in there. And the connector is ripped, or the ribbon cable is ripped?
The ribbon cable.
Is the ribbon cable hardwired? Or is it
No,
got a
not
connector at both ends?
A connector both end. I would have to see that. I'll send the photo later on.
Because if it's just the cable, then just order a cable. I mean, that's going to be like $5.
Okay.
Yeah, those are cheap.
If it's the connector, then you got to get really good with the hot air gun.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't have that. I would have to go to a shop to spend money on it. In order just to get the 1 TB HDD from my HP laptop into my Dell, I had my brother disassemble it and then try to move it, and that time it came off.
Hold on. Does that thing have USB 3.0 connections on it?
Let me check the specifications. I'm not sure. I haven't used it since I bought my new laptop.
If it's got USB 3.0... Yeah, it might. That's the whole thing. If it's got USB 3.0 connections on it, then you can run it, you know, without an internal hard drive until you can get it fixed. SanDisk makes some really small sized thumb drives that will just slot in there and barely stick out, and that can be your hard drive. Yeah.
This thing right here is so fast, I cannot tell the difference between... Yeah, these are nice. They are so fast you can install an operating system on it, and it runs. You won't be able to tell the difference. I've got about 4 of them.
This is the point where I get to show off this. It's a USB-C case for an M.2 SSD.
Okay,
Oh,
yeah.
that's cool.
So nice.
And
Yeah.
before I got my
Oh.
SSDs, one for Windows and for Linux, before I got the new ones, I was running Linux off of this.
This
And
one,
it didn't really feel slower than if it was an internal one.
this
Joe,
one's
it has a USB 3.0, one USB 3.0.
then you can run a hard drive from that until you can get the cable or the fix or whatever for the internal one. But like this is a USB-C M.2 adapter, so it's super fast. And then I have a couple of more from when I was trying to find a different drive that would work inside the Latitude. So I have
I will be really honest with you all. Reading the things to get it run off Ubuntu or any Linux of this, it's a huge process. You have to move this, then you have to move the other things around.
It shouldn't
You
require
can't-
more than like
You should
two
you should
drives.
be able to plug them.
What you have to move around?
Like
Exactly.
there was this instruction was like bootloader issues. It won't detect your bootloader or something.
Yes, but I mean, if you can just create a GPT partition
On this?
table on the drive and then just format it and install to it like if you would on an internal drive.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. What I've done before in the past is I just plugged them both in, the installer and that, into another USB, and then I just chose that, the hard drive as the,
Install.
boot drive, and that just installs it like normal, and then you just boot from that instead of your internal.
Exactly.
Okay, but what about the performance impact?
Uh,
With USB 3.0,
I-
you're not
I
gonna
was
see
running,
much of a performance.
USB 3.1 through USB 3.1 the SSD when I showed that it was perfectly fine. So it should have the full performance of a hard drive.
Yeah.
That one you've got in your hand there, is that a spinning Rust or is that a SSD?
Internal HDD.
What
It's a
is
what?
the
It's a SS something USB specification.
Oh.
is it a hard drive or an SSD?
Hard drive. The normal hard drive.
What is
Oh,
it?
okay.
50, 400 or 7200 RPM? That's one thing that maybe could reduce performance, but
Okay,
On
it's
SATA
a-
or on USB, you're not going to notice though. I don't think.
It's a Seagate expansion portable drive. It's a Seagate expansion with USB 3.
Usually those are 5400 because they're powered by the USB bus. Usually.
Yeah.
It still shouldn't be a problem for you. Look, get that hardware up and running.
Yeah, I think that would work fine.
Cool.
I
I'll
think
get that.
I think I beat you all. I have this.
Can't see it. What is it?
Hard drives,
read
anybody?
it.
Got some Samsung SSDs.
Okay, so
Barracuda Pro.
it's a USB 3.0 SSD. Sorry, HDD.
someone say hard drives.
Hold on.
Oh, yeah.
That's
I
2
don't- I
times
can't
2
get my
terabytes.
RAID box. It's
You know,
not-
my
Don't make me
Hey.
show off my RAID array, okay?
No, I've never.
You know
Good
what?
idea.
My parents would kill me
I see
if I
your
buy
RAID
a
array, and I raised you my Z pool.
Hey, I have both, so.
How's the ZFS experiment going on, Josh?
Good. I'm enjoying it a lot. The only flaw to it is if you really want it for Linux, you really got to use Ubuntu. I don't care what anyone says; it's too much of a pain otherwise.
Yeah.
Even Fedora?
Absolutely right.
How's the
Fedora
experience?
doesn't work at all. On 35, it doesn't even work because they have held back the repo until they get it actually working. So it doesn't even work.
If you use anything besides Ubuntu, you're going to be using DKMS,
What's
Every
that
time
you're
you- ZFS. Or ZFS. Those two things are real similar.
What are the advantages? Wait.
Advantages over, well...
Are you pulling my leg? ZFS, ZFS?
No, he isn't.
Just a bit.
It's okay, man. Come on.
That's why you gotta look at ButterFS.
I enjoy ButterFS.
I've had some trouble with that.
Started listening to the Linux cast this week, and one of the guys that made a pretty bold claim. He said that probably the successor to ext4 will be ZFS, and what I know about ZFS, I think it's mostly used in like server farms and stuff.
Well, the problem is that the license is not compatible with the Linux kernel.
Right, that's the biggest issue.
Is it meant to be used is it meant to be for personal usage as well, or what exactly?
Yeah, it can be.
Mm-hmm. OpenZFS is basically...
Wait, I remember when on the Linux Unplugged, when they would do the live update on their server, they would have to build modules for ZFS because it's not in the kernel.
Because they were using Arch.
Yeah, but even on other system, the Linux kernel doesn't have ZFS at all on any distro.
No, because Ubuntu puts it in their kernel.
Yeah, they build the module and they just include it in their kernel. They're
So will
just living on the
Pacman have
edge.
ZFS?
Don't they have a little bit of limited functionality though on their version of
You have to
ZFS?
install the ZFS utils. You do have to install that.
Yeah, you do. You're right, but
get the command line tools.
Right. Well, if you go by the LTS version, it is a later version or earlier version of ZFS. They're newer.
And that's another problem.
Right. I have to run the newer versions of Ubuntu, the 2110 or whatever, to get the features that I want. So that's my problem. I can't run the LTS yet. Next LTS is going to be, I'm going to stick on that for a long time, for my server at least.
Yep, same here.
So my first LTS version was 14.04 on my Dell, which I told you about. It was my first Linux certified laptop, which I bought during my college days. So I kind of enjoyed using Ubuntu. Then I discovered all this world of distro hopping. Jumped onto Fedora from FC33. Arch, I tried before, but I failed and waited till the script came out. Arch install script within Arch Linux.
Arch reels you in when you Arch reels you in when you finally do get all that done. You spend the hours of typing all that stuff in, and then you restart, and you get a desktop and the rewarding
then
sensation.
You realize you're on a
and then you realize
laptop,
what
and you
Linux
don't have
superiority
anything else
is.
installed.
What do I do now?
One thing I like about Arch is teaches you like how to compile applications. That's the best thing.
Oh, then you love it.
Hey, there it is.
Need to start up ArchCast.
Greetings, fellow humans.
Yeah. Ironically, Arch has been the most just work distro for me for stuff like NVIDIA and Backfire.
But NVIDIA, I don't know how to run it properly on Arch yet because it will break every time Arch updates, I believe.
Just looked up in the Arch repos. There's the Linux and the Linux LTS package, and the Linux LTS is still on 5.10. But whenever 5.16 comes out, I imagine the Linux LTS kernel will be updating to 5.15. So I might consider staying on 5.15. Actually, I'm not even sure. Wait, I'm on the Zen kernel. Is there an LTS for the Zen kernel? I'm not sure.
Yeah, there is, but there's not as many features.
Okay, I'm gonna have to sidetrack you guys for just a minute.
Okay.
Next week's show, it's gonna be the predictions show.
I just had a great idea for the predictions, but I let you finish.
Okay. Get your predictions together. They'll go in the show notes. I don't know. Have the show notes been started? Probably
I think
not.
I did that.
Maybe. Okay.
I usually do that.
I'm definitely joining this one because it's a week before my birthday as well.
Happy birthday. We'll have to copy over last year's predictions. There's a lot of them because we also took in predictions from all the listeners.
Right.
So
I related to that. I had an idea because we mentioned how a lot of people who had among the hosts who had predictions last year are not here. For example, Tony and Leo are not here. So when we do our new predictions, we should have everyone who's been a host in the past couple of years. Bo, Leo, Josh, everyone to send in their predictions. So not only if someone can't make the show, they can still have the predictions for the year.
okay, well, my predictions kind of sucked.
I don't even remember mine, so.
I don't think they're supposed to be good.
Yeah, that was the whole point last year. Was
They must not be because nobody ever is.
So is that going to fill up? That's the innards, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, dude, it's going to be huge. The innards, there's going to be a lot there to go through. You really got to look at the old show notes. It's 351 show notes in the archived show notes. There's a lot.
So
If we're going to have a
6-hour
show on 26.
I don't know if I can do that. I'm going to be at my dad's house.
No, that's a bit too long. So should we scale back on news and security so that we can kind of truncate the show a little bit?
Yeah. I don't know how well that will work with the segments. Norbert?
Yeah, because you're going to have a short first show then.
I will try to truncate my wanderings at least, because I've already started writing it. That's why I created the doc. We don't have anything in the news and security yet.
Okay, how about I just tell about wandering section? I just tell whatever I have done in the past week because.
Wait. At least if we're splitting up the episode as we would, and what the really long part is going to be is the Linux nerds, then we only have to be concerned with the second part. So we can have as many news and as many security updates because that's not going to impact the length of the second part.
Okay.
So we don't have to cut back on the news.
Mm-hmm.
No, for wanderings, I was telling since I have joined after a long time, so I should only put specific things which I did, like distro hopping or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Do we also have a mini interview for Bill in the innards?
Yes, we're going to have.
Or could we just? If we could do that any episode, but it would make sense to have it on his first appearance. Or we could. Right. He could have his introduction in the Wanderings.
Let's do his introduction in the Wanderings, considering that we think that the innards are going to be as large as they are.
Mm.
I mean, I'm probably not going to have a whole lot for new predictions, but just going through the old predictions is going to be.
Yeah, it's going to be quite a bit.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which
are you going to be on for that one, Josh?
I'm going to try to be.
Okay.
Are you going to be on for the next show?
Which one?
The January, what's it going to come out to? Not the 2nd, but the 9th? Yeah, 9th. January 9th.
I probably can be. For the most part, I should be able to be on every show during the winter time. Unless, of course, it snows on that day, then I can't, gotta plow. But,
Okay, guys, heads up. From January 1st onwards, I will be at my relative's house, so I'll just try to pitch in whenever I can.
That's fine.
It's a marriage function in Feb, so I'm going 1 month before for some work.
mintCast is always a carousel, so.
Yeah.
Joe, which episode was the previous predictions? So I can
351, if I remember right. I had it brought up.
51.
351, yeah. I should still have.
Yeah, where do you find the old notes?
In archived show notes, or that was it. Archived show notes.
All right.
Old.
On Google Drive, you're saying, or?
Oh, it's called old show notes.
Let me see.
On Google Drive.
Have that.
It's there's an archives folder and there's an
old show notes
within
that.
Like that.
Yeah.
Where are the show notes? Period.
You don't have access yet.
Oh, okay.
We'll give you access to the upcoming show notes, and once you do your first show, that'll verify that you actually want to be on, and then we'll start giving you access to the Google Drive and things like that. We do have a lot of, I don't want to say sensitive, but like the passwords to all our different accounts are on there, so we prefer to make sure you actually want to be here before we hand that to you.
Gotcha.
Plus, Leo was the one giving permissions on that, so I'm going to have to dig through and find out how to grant access. Either that or poke Leo and have him do it.
Don't poke the bear.
I will drive out to his house.
How
Literally,
close do you guys live together?
What, like 200 miles?
No.
just go and poke him
Yeah.
for the end.
I'll just take a day trip out there. I'll bring a
so
six-pack with
in
me or
the show
something.
notes, I'm just going to refer to Josh, the new Josh as Josh the Third, and Josh Hawk as Josh the Second. If it's okay for you, I mean, it's easier.
You have to say it right.
He's not new.
The other
Or
Josh.
The Fedora user, Josh. He's not
it was so
new,
confusing
actually.
for me because when I started listening to the show, it was Josh the Second was on, and then I jumped back maybe a year to start listening from there, and there was Josh but with a different voice. Wait, that was a different Josh.
The young Josh.
The young Josh. Yeah.
Because he was
There
still
are
in high school.
Three Joshes so far.
The OG Josh.
The OG.
He's still the youngest Josh.
We are the collective. Where have I heard this dialogue before?
The Josh Wars?
There was a Josh fight.
Josh Fight, that's what it was.
Yeah, the Josh fight. Yeah.
No,
Did not participate in that.
We are the collective. Wouldn't that be a Star Trek reference?
I
Yeah,
think
a
so.
bit like the board.
Yeah, I have heard that somewhere. So it's like,
Or
You will
join
be
the
the
collective?
Resistance is futile.
Yes.
what do you, Josh? What do you think about the new timeline started? Chris Pine and
What do you mean new timeline?
the alternate timeline, which the new movies have shown. Star Trek Beyond, Star Trek.
There's basically two ongoing timelines with Star Trek right now. There's the movie ones, and then there's the TV show ones. And there, for a while there, they were talking about continuing on with the movie one in the TV shows, but they evidently went back to the Picard ones for the TV shows. So
Oh, did anyone watch Picard? This reminds me.
Yes. Yes.
Not Star Trek Picard, the Picard single based on that character, the series based on.
it would still be
It's
Star
like-
Trek Picard.
Okay.
Yeah. I think it's just called Picard.
Yeah, it's still Star Trek.
Yeah.
Who is your favorite captain in the whole series, movies included?
I don't know.
Joe?
It's a tough call.
Tom Baker. Wait, no, wrong show.
Wrong show. And Tom Baker's always the wrong answer.
Yeah, because the right answer is always,
Pertwee.
at least for me.
For
No,
me, James.
the right answer varies. Right now it's Paul McGann.
Is
For
who?
me,
Paul McGann,
Oh.
Eighth Doctor.
Eighth Doctor's awesome. Don't get me wrong. I love how much content he has in the audio. But I'm
He went
still
off
going to have to
topic.
say Pertwee.
Pertwee and can we say Pertwee and Baker?
No, we
What
can't say
about
Baker.
I mean, those two were, I think, arguably the most important in the classic era. When that was when most of the lore was laid out.
Yeah.
what
I'll
about
like
that Lady Doctor? Lady Doctor.
Jodie Whittaker?
Yes. The relatively recent series.
Yeah.
Of
She's
Doctor Who.
just, finished up her final series and she's got a couple of specials left and that's it.
Yeah. She's a good actor, but not in
The
this
scripts
role.
sucked. Not as
But-
bad.
Okay.
Not as bad as the Capaldi scripts from his first season, but still pretty
Yes,
darn
but
bad.
even Capaldi managed to perform well with those scripts. But Jodie, she's not as convincing as the Doctor as I would have. I mean, she's certainly not as convincing as the Doctor as Misha Gomez was as Missy.
Yeah,
Okay,
but
coming back
that's
to
a whole
Misha
lot of
Gomez.
personality right
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry to interrupt. Coming back to Star Trek.
Okay, favorite captain. That's a tough call. I mean, there's a lot more content with Picard than there is with Kirk, but Kirk was still a badass. And I'm definitely not going to say Cisco, and I'm definitely not going to say Janeway, and I'm definitely not going to say Pike. And what was the captain from Enterprise?
Which Enterprise? The NX series?
The Enterprise
first
series,
one?
Star Trek
Archer.
Enterprise.
Archer.
Yeah.
Jonathan Archer.
He's awesome, you know, Sam Beckett, but I can't pick him either. So it's got to be either Kirk or Picard, but no, I'm leaning towards Kirk here.
So what do you think about the Chris Pine or Chris Pine or the original Kirk?
I can't
Chris
believe
Pine
you
was
asked
fine.
that.
I can't think of anybody else that would do it any better.
So the movie James is much better than the OG series.
No, I disagree completely. OG series all the way.
Yeah.
What I found is like in the movies they have taken some like time travel element of the Vulcans and they have created their own universe, right? That's very odd. Can it be linking to the original series?
Well, it
The way
is
that-
kind of linked
the
into
way-
the original series. It still has Enterprise, which would have occurred all before any of that stuff did. So that's still there. But yeah, it's completely separated as well. And
This sounds like more Star Wars-ish. They are going towards Star Wars where everything is separated, right? Canon-wise.
nah.
I felt like that.
Star Wars, they retconned like all the written stuff, but
Okay.
Yeah.
that they just plain got rid of it. That there's no separate storyline there. They put a stop to all of the previous written stuff and then made all new written stuff.
Okay.
Disney is, Disney will always be.
Sadly.
So,
But I enjoy Star Trek more than Star Wars, to be honest.
well,
The different.
there's a lot of
Different
Star
stories.
Trek that I like, and I've liked Star Trek for a really long time. But a lot of that was there wasn't as much content for Star Wars.
Right.
For
Yeah.
the longest
definitely
time,
not.
there was the original 3 movies. They kept getting re-released in different ways, and that got a little annoying. And
And then they got the prequel trilogy, then the sequel,
well,
and now after the sequel.
there was other Star Wars content before that. I mean, but none of it was really good. I mean, there was the Ewok movies; those were complete garbage. There was the holiday special where everybody was like extremely coked out while recording it, like a lot.
Star Wars one.
Yeah.
Star Wars one.
I don't think I've heard of
The
that.
Star
I've
Wars
seen
one.
that one.
Oh, dude.
Yeah, in the first season of The Mandalorian, there was a throwaway line mentioning Life Day. So the holiday in the special is now canon.
There was actually more Boba Fett content in the holiday special than there was in the original movies.
What do you think about the Clone
Wow.
Wars and the Rebels
Well,
series?
I haven't even gotten to those yet for the Star Wars stuff, because then there was also the Ewoks cartoon. There was there was an Ewoks
I haven't
cartoon.
seen that.
There
I
was
have
the
watched
Droids cartoon,
that. I haven't seen that one.
and that was all like 19 or early 80s, I think. It was
Before
either late
the-
70s or early 80s.
Before the sequel trilogy, I think the
Yeah,
episode 1,
well
2,
before
3.
the prequel
well before
trilogy.
that, yeah.
And then the prequel trilogy came out, and it had some okay aspects in the prequel trilogy, but mostly Jar Jar. Yeah. Let's move on.
You know what the best aspect
No,
of the
He's
prequel.
not here.
You know what the best aspect of the prequel trilogy is? that it spawned the Clone Wars series.
Exactly.
Which is
Clone
nice.
Wars,
right, exactly.
Rebels,
Wait,
good,
isn't
fairly
Clone
good
Wars
stuff from
canon?
there. Huh?
Uh,
Isn't Clone Wars
uh,
canon?
Clone Wars is canon.
Yeah.
Clone Wars is, yes.
And there's a Star Wars Wikipedia wiki page called Timeline of Canon Media, and they have all of the new canon stuff, the movies, those 2 TV shows, and there's even a few dozens of books and comics that are in the new canon. I did my proper slow-paced chronological watch-through between 2015 and 2020. So I started with so when The Force Awakens came out, I watched the original trilogy before it, and I was kind of disappointed by the new movie. Then I decided to go back to the prequels and watching chronological order, so I watched the movies 1 and 2. Then I watched the Clone Wars, then the final season of Clone Wars, which came out last year, then Revenge of the Sith, then Rebels. And a couple of books, like, for example, there's a book called Catalyst, which is a prequel to Rogue One, what was the guy's name who designed the Death Star? How we ended up working on that, how they ended up...
Darth Vader.
No, not that Vader.
Calamari or something?
No. Jean's father, something Erlo or something like that. So but it's been after the Clone Wars. I took maybe a 2-year break before the final season came out, so I might have to rewatch the Clone Wars, which I'm planning to do next year.
Right, but then I'm
It's a
really
good series. I'd
excited
watch it multiple times.
for all the Star Wars content that's coming out now. Not necessarily the movies. I haven't been all that interested in the latest trilogy that came out. I think I watched the first one, didn't watch the second or third one, and I haven't watched the Han Solo movie.
Boba Fett series
Starts
in 11 days.
Yeah, starts soon.
Nice.
I'm excited for the Boba Fett series. I've loved The Mandalorian. They've got the what's his name? Obi-Wan Kenobi series coming out.
Yep.
That I'm excited about.
They've got a couple of other offshoot series that I'm not going to remember the names of, but it's all
Ahsoka,
Star
I think,
Wars.
is one of them.
Yeah.
Yep. Ahsoka will. Thing about Ahsoka is that the Ahsoka series, I think, will feature Ezra Bridger, who was the main character in the Rebels. So Star Wars. So I think Clone Wars and Rebels are watches before the Ahsoka series.
Yeah.
So now Star Wars has more content than Star Trek?
No.
Not yet.
That's not gonna. That's gonna take a lot to exceed that, because Star Trek just has this history of shows. I mean, between the original series, Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, Voyager, Enterprise, the cartoons.
Guys. Star Trek news. Star Trek 4 The Voyage Home is gonna be released soon. Star Trek 4 on the new timeline.
We'll see. And maybe it won't
suck. It's under development right now.
And maybe it won't suck. I mean, some of your cast is already dead, so...
Like, who?
DeForest Kelly and...
Well, no.
What was Nishan's initial question about
Star Trek? From the new series, DeForest Kelly has been dead for a really long time now. I think he died when I was a teenager.
Oh, sorry. It's a 1986 movie. I just read. Oh, God.
I got that on VHS.
Star Trek 4.
What's those?
Yeah.
Yeah, Star Trek 4. Sorry, I just read through that article. I was so excited about the new timeline Star Trek. I'm waiting for anything beyond.
Really, I don't think they're going to come out with another movie, since the guy that what's his name? That played the Russian.
Oh, the guy that played Chekhov.
The guy that played Chekhov is dead.
Yeah, he's dead.
No, they won't replace him?
To
be the same character?
Maybe, but I doubt it. But he died in a horrible accident.
Okay.
And not long after that last movie came out. Like, he was standing behind his Jeep, I think it was, and I guess the parking brake wasn't engaged, and it slipped, and he got caught between the Jeep and a fence, and slowly suffocated to death.
That does not sound like an accident to me.
Then how did, like, okay, coming to dead actors, how did Fast and Furious were able to emulate Paul Walker?
Well, they
In
didn't
the,
try to make a whole movie around him either.
Mm-hmm.
And Paul
Okay.
Walker has brothers that look enough like him that with a little digital reconstruction, you're good to go.
Yeah, look at Luke
Okay.
Skywalker. Look what they did for him. I mean, holy crap.
Okay.
Luke wasn't 100% convincing. I think whenever
No.
Star Wars comes,
You could tell it was
but
digital.
whenever Star Wars comes out with a CGI human, every time someone drops a video on YouTube making a more convincing one, and I think LucasArts actually hired someone who did one of those deepfake remakes of their CGI stuff. But when you look at Tarkin in Rogue One, he looks absolutely CGI. But when you look at Luke in the Mandalorian, his face is way softer, so it's something.
Wait, is the actor?
It looks more similar to deepfake, which I think Disney has been.
Well, they had a smaller
hesitant to
budget for
try.
Mandalorian than,
I've
Wait,
heard
wait,
something
wait.
about.
Isn't Mark
heard-
Hamill alive?
yeah.
I've
But
heard
he's also
something
not
about
20
Disney,
anymore.
Yeah, that's the problem.
and I
No,
think
but
someone
the
mentioned
way
that he
portray-
also looks older than he is.
No,
Mark
but
Hamill.
the way they portrayed him in the last trilogy movie.
What the problem is, the new trilogy is that we know that Luke established a Jedi Academy. So I would love to see a series about Luke running
Yeah.
a Jedi Academy. But we also know that Rilo Khan killed all of the Padawans there. So there's no going around. They would either have to retcon the new trilogy, which they're not going to do.
Is Kylo Ren the new Darth Vader?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He
Except when Kylo made his switch back to the light, he kind of stayed there.
Yeah.
Stayed
Gee,
there,
who didn't,
I
who
guess?
didn't see that one coming?
No, Kylo Ren was the one who was he kept talking to Dark. I've only seen
I
Force
didn't
Awakens.
notice that. I
But
didn't
but he
notice
was
that
but he
deeply
kept
in Kylo Ren.
but he kept trying to follow what Darth Vader stood for, but that didn't really. But the reason why I didn't see that making sense is because Darth Vader also turned back to the light side before he died.
No,
Right,
he didn't.
so-
It was just sympathy for his son that made him.
That
turn
technically
to
still
the
counts as him turning back to the light, but he died as soon
Yeah.
as he did it. So Kylo didn't. And if you, in the older books, I know it's not canon anymore, but that was basically the way that, light Jedis got stronger. They turned to the dark side, then they came back, and they were stronger
Yep,
for
and
it.
they came back.
They had more power then. So
I think
if you were a good guy and you wanted to be even stronger, you had to be a bad guy first.
So Kenobi has been to the dark side once in his life. At least, if we look at
Not
that.
that I'm aware of.
Even Qui-Gon.
Unless this new series says otherwise, I don't think so.
Yeah, not that I'm aware of.
Because
What?
they're grandmasters in the Jedi Council.
You know how
Powerful person.
you know what a grandmaster is?
It's
it-
a rank.
No, a grandmaster in martial arts. It's really simple to become a grandmaster. First, you become a master, as in you have students, and then you get old enough that those students also have students, and then you're a
Oh.
grandmaster.
So this is a time thing, basically.
Okay.
wait. So how does becoming a dark grandmaster work in Star Wars?
My guess
So-
is it's the exact same thing. You become a master,
be.
as in you train
Because-
someone, and then that
But
person
wait, there's
goes on to train someone else, and
But-
then you're a grandmaster.
that infamous quote from the Revenge of the Sith that we grant you the rank of master, but we allow you to be on the council, but we don't grant you the rank of master. So I assume because he already had canonically a student, Ahsoka, that it doesn't really mean master, it means grandmaster. So is a title of grandmaster something that can be just granted to a Jedi?
I don't know
Because-
on that particular score. Like I said,
Well,
I was
I
making
mean-
the comparison to martial arts.
So as far as I-
it's just
as far
a
as I
title,
underst-
so I guess they
But
could.
as far as I
mean, if they want.
understand,
And
as
you
far
know,
as I understand, everyone on the Jedi Council was a grandmaster, but not every grandmaster was on the Jedi Council. Because
That
there
makes
must have been
sense.
more of them.
but after the
Okay,
entire
what do you-
council was dead, I'm pretty sure that you could make yourself a grandmaster
Yeah,
just
that's what
by
I'm
saying
It's
it.
just a
If
title
you're
at
the
that
only
point.
guy with the vote, then guess what?
Also, one of the
What do
interesting themes of the Rebel series was how you don't necessarily have to. I think I remember how you don't necessarily have to be right or dark, because there was a character in Rebels who was like the neutral, who was
Gray
Mhm,
Jedis.
who
mhm.
represented
It-
like
Gray
the,
Jedi.
the
Grey Jedis
Okay,
were
hold
among.
up.
it,
Hold
it,
up,
it
hold
wasn't
up.
even a
Spoiler
Jedi.
alert.
It was like a more of a mythical
Okay,
creature
yeah.
who said himself to be not neither light or dark, but
Oh.
more of the
A
Yeah.
more of the
gray
raw
force
and natural
user.
force.
That's what it is.
Right, a gray force
Oh,
You're
that's
getting
awesome.
rid
Wait,
of the
is
Jedi
that-
religion, and it's a gray force user.
Right.
It's a species also, right? Greys are a species in Star Wars.
No.
Alien
I don't know.
Greys are a
don't think so.
species in, American folklore, essentially.
So they took some bit of the country where the movie was made, like US folklore, into Star Wars.
Well, Greys are folklore on here on Earth. I mean, it's folklore where people talk about being abducted and stupid crap.
Aliens, I
Yeah.
thought of them as aliens always. Oh, this is the reason aliens are depicted as grey beings. Is
Yeah.
that correct?
Mm-hmm.
But no,
Wow.
a gray force user is just someone that's neither light nor dark. They have their own
Right.
balance. And the theory behind it is that by having, good force users, because the universe requires balance, it's also creating dark force users. So you have the light force users, but because they exist and they're good, and balance is required in the universe, that requires there to be dark,
Every
evil
religious
force
book
users.
ever, every religious book ever, good
Essentially,
versus evil, on this earth.
You can't have, evil without having good.
You mean to say
you can't define the one without the other.
You can't have evil without having the opposite side.
Right. You can't have good
Right.
without evil because they're used to define each other.
Okay.
Yin and yang. Equal measures of both.
And I guess you can't have gray without both of them, because how can you define gray without both light and dark?
Exactly.
Ooh, there you go.
So, Bill, what other laptops are you running
Okay, so
apart from the Omen? Oh, sorry guys, had to bring.
If you, I'm going to say again, if you hear a girly scream and a crash, don't worry about it. It's just me dying.
I'm used to that sound.
So, Bill, what other laptops you're running at home
All
or
right.
PC?
The one I take on the road with me is a HP, and I don't know the model on that. It's
That's fine.
also it's a 15-inch. It's just got one SSD in it.
Is it
and
a
it's got
Pavilion? Is it HP Pavilion?
No, yeah. Actually, I think it's upstairs. 15-inch. It's got an SSD that I put in it. Another Samsung 960 Pro. That's got 8 gig of RAM, and it's got a Pentium chip in it with no fan
Ooh.
whatsoever. Yeah, it quad
Pentium
core.
sounds old school.
Well, you know what they do? I think they'll test out like an i5, and it doesn't work very well, so they just slap.
Oh yeah, they'll
Pentium
bin
in
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, but
And
Pentium has got latest generations also, right? For home.
I mean,
usage.
it's a quad core.
Oh, okay. The older Pentiums. Now we get
Oh, yeah.
Pentiums with dual core
It's
for
just
home usage.
not
It's a
clocked
newer
very
model
high.
Pentium.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not
Okay,
clocked
gotcha.
very high, and it's really, I mean, it's got integrated graphics, but it's the one I take on the road with me just so I can get online and just play around.
Probably
And I
got
put-
decent battery life though.
It does, and it doesn't get hot at all, and
Right.
there's no
Without
fan.
the fans.
Yeah, it doesn't. I mean, I've never pushed it like I do this one,
Sweet.
but yeah, the battery just goes on and on and on and on. But I've got Gnome on that, and it actually performs pretty well. But like I said, I don't run any extensions whatsoever. I'm not real sure why.
So are you a purist? You use Arch, you don't run GNOME without extensions?
Well, I wanted to see, with all of the drama that the GNOME developers, and I say GNOME developers, one of the GNOME developers has been causing as of late. I wanted to see, well, what is exactly the experience of GNOME without any extensions? And it's actually somewhat irritating. I can almost forgive almost everything except the app indicators. I don't know why they're so ostensive about that. I don't understand why that is. Is their code base so fragile that there's just no way of supporting that?
No, because you can add in an extension and it
Yeah,
works fine.
Yeah, but the way you add extensions, it's very cumbersome. Go to the browser.
Yeah,
install
that is
an
one thing they need to improve.
Yeah, it feels like a bolted on thing, and it should be. If you don't want to add it to the toolbar on top, fine. Add it to the overview or something. I don't know. I don't know what the answer is, but there's so many applications that are just unusable without the app indicators. You know, like I'm looking right now at.
You mean to say the notification applications like Telegram, Slack, or something like that?
Yeah, because you without having those, you don't know if you're getting messages, or besides the notifications themselves.
Mm-hmm.
You can't if you miss that notification, you can't look down and see, I don't know, all the reasons why you would want to use app
Since I'm on
indicators.
Pop OS, everything comes out of the box. Whatever
Yeah.
is required, app indicators.
Well, even Arch packs about a half a dozen extensions along with GNOME when you install it.
Really?
Yeah, even Arch, and Arch even ships the that flat pack thing you've got to have now, because they don't put the starting with
repository.
well the to be able to control your extensions through the GNOME Tweaks app. There used to be
extensions app.
Yeah,
I think it's just called extensions. Yeah.
Yeah,
do you
then they
mean
moved it.
there's a Flatpak compatibility package for GNOME software
Correct.
as well as a Snap compatibility package.
Oh,
I
right.
had to install those on Fedora, I think.
Well, Arch ships with that. And
But while Arch ships a bunch of extensions, I think those aren't those the officially made extensions, because the only way to get tray icons is still, I'm using I think it's called tray icons reloaded or something like that. So it's an unofficial solution.
Right, yeah.
But it's interesting that they say that extensions are a niche, and then you install Fedora, for crying out loud, and it comes with all these extensions. You install Red Hat. I've actually got a copy of that on KVM here, and they even use them for some of their.
So what I got to know from Matt and Ben was that they use Fedora as a testing bed. Fedora is the first stage through which the application code gets pushed to before going on to Red Hat Enterprise.
Yeah, and now CentOS Stream is the in-between between Fedora and Red Hat.
Yes, that's correct. We discussed a bit of why they had to do Stream.
Because this way the community can get involved with Red Hat development, which is actually a smart move.
And I agree with it. I think
this is exactly what...
I think they rolled it out.
Their execution was horrible.
Terrible, yeah.
This is what Ben and Matt agree with. Execution was horrible.
If they had kept CentOS 8 in place and just said, hey guys, there will be no CentOS 9, we will have CentOS Stream 9, but CentOS 8 will still have how many years of support, that would have been way better, because this way CentOS 8 will be end of life before CentOS 7, which is nonsense.
And then how could they say that this was going to be a rolling release? That's what they said. I'm like, do you not pay attention?
Sometimes I think the people that turn the knobs and move the switches, they're not always the ones that are in the community and understand how things are going to be interpreted.
Get Rocky Linux to replace the CentOS 8.
Also, there's Alma Linux, which seems to be
Rocky.
Alma seems to be in a better position.
I've lost faith in Rocky, because the developer got really, I mean, he got really in their faces in all the Linux faces when they were doing like certain live streams and stuff, and it was
that
Oof,
was
man.
that was
That's
on
the one thing.
the guys on Linux Unplugged had some really bad things to say about it. But also, if the upstream Fedora is not rolling, then CentOS stream can't be rolling either.
right.
So
Oh yeah, logically, if you think about it, it doesn't make any sense to say it's to think that it's rolling at all. But
It's a semi-rolling
saying that,
release, according to
it
the
also
Red Hat
wouldn't
guys.
have any benefit from being rolling
No.
because it's supposed to be an enterprise system.
And Fedora is like rolling anyway. I mean, I say
mean,
Fedora's
it's
rolling. I mean,
It's not as
semi-rolling.
rolling as Arc.
semi.
Arch. It's a 6-month.
Not quite as rolling as Arch, but things are moving along a lot faster.
It is.
in
They say
Fedora.
it's
And
6
it needs
months,
to
but
be.
like I get the newest packages, pretty much all newest packages
Yes,
all
but
the time. It's not like
the important stuff like so if
So
you are
I'm talking about
if you are on,
the time between FC34 and FC35, FC35 and FC36 major versions,
the
and
6
the
months.
kernel upgrade.
But
Yeah.
even if you get new packages on, for example, Fedora 34, you won't get GNOME 41 unless you upgrade
Right.
to Fedora 35. But
Right.
can you answer me this, Nishan? After Fedora 35 was released, will Fedora 34 still get new feature updates, like new kernels and stuff? Or does
It
it
will get
just
new
stop there?
kernel. It will definitely get new kernel. FC34 was updated to 5.15 recently. As per the email I get on my mailing list.
Wait,
which I'm
so at
subscribed
this point, where both 33 was end of life, I think a month ago. So both 34 and 35 are supported. For example, when there's a new version of like LibreOffice, will both versions receive it or just 35?
Oh, no,
Because
I haven't seen that. I am only seeing. I'm in the developers list of only the kernel and the other stuff. I haven't
Because
seen the other stuff yet.
I think it would make sense. So until
Like
while
if
34.
you guys want me to put out anything about Fedora, just DM me anytime. I'll just send it to them.
So the way I imagine it is, while 34 was the latest, it would be semi-rolling. So it would be rolling for some packages like the kernel
I think
and
FC34 will be end of life soon.
no, all of those have 30 months, so it's another 6 months before it gets end of life.
I think before
So-
FC36 will release, maybe FC34 will.
1 month after 36 is released. So Fedora is kind of like Debian testing because it has point releases, but it's semi-rolling. But
Right.
when there's a new release of Fedora, does the previous release, which is still supported, become something like Debian stable, where there are no feature updates anymore?
So
It would
from
make
what
sense because
I have seen in their infrastructure gets, FC34 and FC35 both get the kernel update, the new kernel update. They
yeah,
don't
but the
need
kernel
that.
is kind of different. I mean, like software like LibreOffice.
Software also same. But I haven't gone that deep into the software end, but I'll let you know once I find out something.
The only thing I know is when they're
But Fedora,
They're
what I
moving
like
on
is it's everything is fresh, every major release.
I think if you had 33, or I don't know, when did they start adding Pipewire by default?
I think
34,
34.
Okay, so if you'd during 33's life cycle, if you'd installed 34, you'd have had Pipewire, and then if you installed 33, you wouldn't have had Pipewire. So I think it's when they switch to new technologies and things like that, you'll see major differences between one release and another.
They also added Wireplumber to 35, which isn't
Yeah,
by
that
default in
too.
34. Yeah.
Okay, so
What are you running, Bill?
Huh?
he's
what am
with
I-
the
What are
app.
you running?
Arch on this one here.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. That's I don't know. I follow all these other distros to see, okay, what, the interesting things that they're coming out with, and then my next step is to get that running on Arch. So,
I kind of got into the Arch ecosystem and stayed there because of my first distro was Manjaro, and then I moved to Arch.
Yeah,
So, for
that's-
example, when I try to install, I like to install a minimal GNOME with only absolute minimal dependencies. So when I learned how to do that on Arch for my tablet, and I moved to Fedora on my tablet, then I had to relearn what packages I have to install to get everything, what are the dependencies. It's a different way of enabling like GDM and stuff.
Okay,
Yeah.
my mindset is geared towards Fedora because I have to do all the sysadmin stuff. Okay, But I'm using Pop OS, which is based on Ubuntu, which is based on Debian, which is also used in sysadmin tasks. So both are equal for me in terms of system admin.
My absolute favorite sort of triumvirate of distros is Arch, Debian, and Void, because Debian is just I mean either Debian or Ubuntu for my university work because of the packages, and I like Debian because it's I want to use XFCE, and it's
I like
it's,
Pop.
it's interesting how Debian has in the installer it has Gnome as a default desktop, but why is that, I wonder? Because I mean,
history probably just dating back to Gnome 2, and that was always like the default for everybody.
I installed Dev1 the other day, which is like Debian without systemd, and it didn't have Gnome. It defaulted to XFCE. I would actually prefer to see XFCE as a default in Debian.
Users, how do you get adapted to Cinnamon? I haven't tried Mint 3 times. I still couldn't get adapted to the Cinnamon interface.
Cinnamon is fine if you come from Windows, I think. But I
came from Windows personally, but I find Cinnamon okay. It's not that it's easy to use, fine, but to find that applications and all, I'm pretty much comfortable with the dock in GNOME and everything.
Oh, well, it's not all that difficult. You hit your super key and you start typing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyone has used TWM here? Tiling window managers? Like BSTWM, i3WM?
I used DWM for a while. DWM is interesting because it has no configuration whatsoever.
And no documentation, and you have to patch everything.
Very little. I mean, its documentation's fragmented out there. But yeah, you have to patch. Every time you want to change something, you have to rewrite the... it has to be recompiled, which is fast because it's so light. But it doesn't source any config files at all. It's basically... Wow. Yeah, if you want to change something, you gotta...
But if you don't have proper documentation and you have no default config, how do you make your config?
Let me think. Well, there's some stuff on the Arch Wiki. There is some documentation. The group that used to work on that used to have a repository called the Suckless.
Yep, Suckless. I have never tried any of that stuff.
What a repository name.
Because their slogan was, it's software that sucks less.
Yeah, because they think their attitude was just that everything out there is just overbloated. In fact, they got a browser out there called Surf, and it's just one screen, no tabs. It's based on WebKit, and it's about as minimalist as you can. Yeah, minimalist as you can get, because their philosophy is that tabs are the job of the window manager.
So you just have multiple windows open.
Correct. And if you're using something like DWM, you've got a separate tile.
Right. That makes total sense.
If I want multiple websites and full screen, then I would have to create another workspace for that.
It's it's a completely different context.
Right now I have 10, 11, 12. I have 17 tabs, so would I have to create 17 workspaces? I could sleep there, so I have to create 10 workspaces just for
so I use i3WM, and one of the best thing is like you can open different applications across different workspaces. I put Discord on one. I put web browser on one. I put Notepad on one, code on one, coding on one. So I like that. I'm just waiting for Regolith Linux to upgrade to 21.10. It's a Ubuntu base. Ubuntu base with i3WM. Regolith Linux.
Regolith.
Yeah.
So I think Regolith sort of combines GNOME and i3.
As far as I'm
fine. Yeah, you got the GNOME services running in the background with the i3.
I'm fine with that because it's documented. Like once you start it up, it will show you which keys to press.
It kind of gives you tiling, but with the added features of the desktop. I really like that. I tried it, but I did is replaced XFCE's window manager with i3, and when I logged in, I got the XFCE panel, but it was using i3, so everything was styling, but I could still get like the XFCE settings for
It's like
Wi-Fi and
GNOME
stuff.
settings plus i3 functionality.
That's
the
nice.
difference.
It's a good place to start when you're wanting to, you're wanting to get started into a tiling window manager, but you're not.
That's how discovered.
Yeah.
That's how I discovered i3WM, and I love i3WM. It's one of the best, lightest.
And there's a
window manager.
Wayland version out there called Sway,
Sway.
Yep.
which
That-
I've not
Those are the
tried
only
it
two
yet.
I've tried.
Yeah.
Sway was my first window manager because I have a little pet peeve with in the next session on most desktops. When I have a 2-in-1 laptop with a touch screen. Whenever I start poking around on the screen, my cursor, it doesn't get hidden. It just teleports under my finger, which is kind of distracting. The only desktops that manage to hide the cursor in that case on Xorg are Gnome and Budgie. But even those like teleport the cursor. So if I tap an icon on my panel to get to a window, my cursor teleports there, it stays there, and the little description of the window pops up. Now, what the Wayland session does, it hides your cursor and it keeps it in place on GNOME. So if I click something, my cursor doesn't teleport there, it just gets hidden. So Wayland seems to not... people keep saying that how Wayland is more secure and more modern, but what it also does, it understands the touchscreen better, I think.
I think that's where all the new features and new innovations going into.
That's the reason I use GNOME on my tablet, because of the Wayland has a superior touch support.
Okay, so what do you guys think? Should I just downgrade to Regolith Ubuntu 21.04 for Regolith i3WM?
I mean, when is Regolith 2110 supposed to come out?
No idea. I've searched their website. I'm looking for signs of development, but nothing yet.
Is there no way to just install Regolith on top of Ubuntu? Because I think
there's a bug report. There was a bug report. It's not working on 21.10.
No, I mean, if you have an existing Ubuntu Impish install, the latest one, can you just
that's
download...
what I'm telling. There's a bug on Impish.
Oh.
They are trying to work on it. It's a PPA. It's a PPA which contains all the desktop environment things, Regolith desktop things. So
has any of you tried... Sorry.
So there's a bug. They have created a bug that some things are missing, which are not compatible with 21.10 just yet, and they're working on it.
I guess the more customized a system is, or a fork of a distro, the more likely is there will be a bug. Because has anyone of you tried either Crunchbang or Bunsen Labs?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
I ran Crunchbang years ago.
Yeah. So I think Bunsen Labs lags 1 year behind Debian, because I think it took them a year after Debian Buster release to release their Buster-based edition. So now Bullseye released this year. I think they will only release next year. So, but there are still... So what I did, I just installed the Debian Buster-based Bunsen Labs, and then I changed the repos to Bullseye, and I did an upgrade, and it broke everything, because the customization they do on the OpenBox for Bunsen Labs, I think it relies heavily on Python, and something along the Python versions broke something.
And it is very old now, Bunsen Labs, August 2020. Lots of vulnerabilities in that OS, I believe.
So I think it would be the same with Regolith. That even though the base system is Ubuntu, that's what comes on top of that might not be...
No, Regolith is 21.04, like this year itself. Bunsen Lab is way back 1 year.
No, I mean, I wasn't talking about Bunsen Labs now, but if you could try the same thing with Regolith?
I could try that. But I would need to
I assume they have...
or do it on a virtual machine.
I assume Regolith has additional repos on top of the Ubuntu repos.
Oh, did you check that there's a message in public? I've shared the repo for Regolith desktop environment. So it's a GitHub repo completely.
One of my very first... so when I started this, I'm on a master's doing my master's at university, and last year in September when I started it, we moved to online classes immediately, and one of the guys who was teaching us Python, he was running Regolith, and that was the first time I've ever seen a tiling desktop.
Oh, wait. Regulate Linux 2 has been released, pre-release. Impish.
Yep, that's
Yep.
like a beta.
Yeah, ISO is there now. Check it out. On the same.
Oh,
Oh, here we go, guys. New distro to try over the next 2 months, so getting into the new year. Regulate 2.0 with based on Impish Indri.
It's interesting as long as these things have been out, and now all of a sudden,
All of a sudden,
Everybody-
that's what Norbert I was looking for. That's exactly the sign I was looking for.
one question: why isn't Regolith? Does it count as its own distro because
It is one
but
of
it's not
like,
listed.
it's
Why
a
is it not
spin. It's a
not listed
community
on?
spin.
Yeah. So, but even those should be listed on DistroWatch, or is it not big enough for it
not yet.
to be
Nobody,
accepted?
not everyone uses
Oh well, it
ICL1.
doesn't exist then.
Yeah, but I mean, the way I see it, it's one of the easiest ways to get into a tiling window manager
Yeah, it
because
is.
the bottleneck, the learning curve for tiling window managers is that you have to do everything in a config file. But if Regolith has the GNOME settings, then you get the tiling window manager, but still have the GUI settings.
I
if
think
I
you still
understand.
have to.
Okay.
You still have to get into the config file for like the key bindings and.
Yes, but for example, like switching keyboard layout or desktop resolution or display resolution and stuff like that, I think you can. So, but my first window manager was Sway, which is a compositing window manager because it's a Sway compositor. And when I tried to switch to i3 because I had to wanted to try to get my screen sharing work on Zoom, which I need for university, I was shocked to find that i3 doesn't have a compositing by default. So I installed PyCom, which I had really bad graphic artifacts with that on Intel graphics. So I just moved back to XFCE with its. And interesting because I was recommended to use PyCom with even XFCE because it's better than its built-in compositor, but on the Intel graphics, I tried multiple configs for PyCom, but still had the artifacts.
Okay, for anyone who wants to try the new Regolith, the link is up on public. ISO.
Can I also say something? I've seen Josh asked about what's up with the latest episode that was supposed to come out this week. I didn't manage to finish it because I was kind of all over the place with university stuff, but I will probably do it. Yes, I will finish it today because I have time after the show, and because of next week I don't really have anything. But in the next 2 weeks, fortunately, my exams are all in January, so I will have time. So I will probably have the next episode ready on time, and the ones after that too. So at least for these two and the next recording, so the New Year's episode, I will still. I think I will do editing for those. Depending on if I have less time, I might ask someone else to do the episodes for January, but there's still a chance I can do those because I enjoy editing them. So I like to do that, so I'm not complaining.
Well, thanks to this discussion, I was able to go deeper into the repository of Regolith and find that ISO finally. Norbert and Josh.
Sorry?
And
sorry, I didn't understand. You have a bit of a background noise.
Thanks to the discussion on tiling window manager, this time I was able to go deeper into the Regolith repository on GitHub, and I found the latest ISO to play with. I mean, to install it on my
they're not advertising it; it's hidden in there somewhere. Can you post a link to the ISO on public?
It's on public.
General?
It's already posted, I think.
Okay.
So it's like the desktop environment isn't ready yet to be installed through PPA. It's just their own distribution which they are releasing first. After that, they release the PPA for installation on Ubuntu. That's why it's taking time. So I may move from POP to Regolith just for the i3. Though I promised myself I won't distro hop for next 1 or 2 years.
Yeah, I was just about to mention that every time you're on the show, you seem to be running something different than the last time.
Yeah, yeah, I understand that.
Did you manage to get away from Windows, or are you
I am
still?
completely off Windows. This is fully running Pop OS 21.10 now. I'm just distro hopping. Whatever release is coming my way every 1 or 2 months.
What I did for a while is after getting a M.2 SSD, I kept my SATA SSD in my computer. It had no purpose at that point, so I just kept it as a distro hopping drive, so I could have more systems at once. But now I started using it as a audio editing storage for mintCast, because for some reason Audacity, when I save a project or save a project as a different project, it generates kind of unreasonable large cache files and stuff for a project. So now I have a 250 gig storage just for audio, which I don't really need as much, but the way I like to have my system is I have a 250 SSD for a system, and then I have hard drives for data. But I have my home partition. But I have my data partition that is my home partition on the SSD, which is like half of the SSD, 120 or so.
Okay, now you guys give me an idea of running Linux off of external hard disk. I may put Pop OS on external and run Rebel on my main machine.
So what I did is I just plugged in the external SSD, and the installer picked it up as if it was an internal one. I just use it as if it was an internal one. Also, install Refined, because it's the greatest thing if you boot from multiple disks. Then you don't have to worry about whether Grub will pick up the different EFI partitions or not.
No,
but can it boot from a compressed file system though, like Grub can? Because that's the thing with ButterFS. If you've got your boot partition compressed, I thought Grub was the only one that could disseminate that.
What do you mean, the partition, or just the? I'm not very
familiar. The file system on the partition. In my case, it's a ButterFS. It's a separate partition, but it's ButterFS.
I think the ArchWiki has some stuff about how you can install some additional stuff to Refine to be in order to make it see ButterFS partitions. But the easiest way is just have like a 1 gig X4 boot partition, like /boot, and not the EFI partition. Yeah. For example, if you do the automatic installation for Fedora, the root file system is ButterFS, but it will have the /boot on an ext4. Mm-hmm. So I mean it's easy for me because I have Void and Arch on my desktop, both of them on ext4, and I don't use grep for either because I have a refined conf in both of those, and I can pass kernel parameters for those, and it's basically it's a one line of config compared to grub being like this many lines of config. So I like the simplicity. Also, when you update and stuff like OS Prober, when it takes like minutes for grub to find the other distros, and on Refine it refreshes every time you start up the computer in like a few seconds.
Oh, this reminds me, I was asking Josh earlier, with OpenSUSE Tumbleweed, the way it default configs to root system being ButterFS, and then I believe home is XFS. Mm-hmm. Is that Linux Mint's Grub can boot that?
As far as I know, yeah.
Yeah.
So, right. And another thing about Grub. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Bill.
I was just going to say, the other thing about Grub, if you're using there's a package you have to install that's ButterFS Grub. And if you do snapshotting with ButterFS, you can get a Grub submenu to boot directly into those snapshots.
Garuda Linux comes to mind.
Yeah, Garuda has that built in.
Mm-hmm. I've not had to use it, in anger yet. But it's nice to know that if I really botched a system up, that I can boot directly into that snapshot. because my
Okay.
update script.
I'm a little reluctant right now because the last OS I had on as my secondary was Manjaro, and I ended up having to use their bootloader, and it gave me some issues with Mint. So even though they were on separate drives, I had to use Manjaro's bootloader. So I wanted to make sure before I wipe out my nice Debian install, because I was thinking about trying SUSE Tumbleweed on as my secondary OS. I just wanted to know if Mint's
Open
Grub could boot it.
open source is not consumer grade OS in my belief.
I'm not worried about that. I think
But-
it's. I've been using it and I've kind of enjoyed the time on it. I just wanted to make sure that
Not even
Mint was
Tumbleweed?
No,
Huh?
it's my belief. It's my belief that SUSE, from starting itself, it has been enterprise grade.
Yes, but it's the same goes for Red Hat, but then Fedora became like a consumer grade OS. So isn't OpenSUSE the same as Fedora is to Red Hat?
Yeah, because you're not
OpenSUSE,
using
Yeah, basically, yeah.
proper. You're using OpenSUSE, which is kind of like the Fedora version of.
is it? I thought OpenSUSE was SUSE's rebranding in the modern era.
No,
I don't know how much separation there is package-wise and version-wise between their enterprise offering and the open. Well, between that and
Okay.
Tumbleweed.
So Tumbleweed, it's different, but with Leap, it's exactly the same now. They actually did that on 15.3. They merged them, so they're both exactly
that would-
the same.
That would put them
Okay,
at odds
so-
with Fedora and Red Hat, because Red Hat is way behind. I think Red Hat is still on. Well, Red Hat 8 is
Red Hat
on.
9 is under development. What I
Okay.
heard from Matt.
So I've got
Ben.
Red Hat 8, and it's still on GNOME 334. So
way back.
that's a
Fedora
that's
is
a
on
huge
almost
separation.
on GNOME 42. Like if 42 releases.
Dale did some explaining on this OpenSUSE, how things work on Telegram. Essentially, there used to be, I think it was only SUSE, then OpenSUSE became a thing, but it was downstream of SUSE Enterprise. And upstream of SUSE Enterprise was the experimental repo, where they test packages. And then someone had the idea in the SUSE management to turn that experimental thing into a repo that is upstream of SUSE Enterprise. So that became Tumbleweed, and what was previously OpenSUSE became Leap. So, but there's still an experimental repo. So there's the experimental, then things come down to Tumbleweed, then SUSE Enterprise, which is then gets cloned to OpenSUSE Leap.
Would you believe it? One of my friends uses SUSE Tumbleweed for gaming on his laptop.
You know, that I tried. So basically, how I set up my refined config, for example, Void Linux, which keeps the previous kernel versions, unlike Arch. So if I pass the parameter in the config file as boot / something like initrd.img, but if it's like the file name is initrd - the kernel version.img, if I write %v, then it will interpret as the kernel versions. For example, when you write uname -r in the terminal. So even if there are multiple kernels, it picks all of those up. And if I select this row in refine, don't press enter but press F2, then I get the list of available kernels. So it's like grub, but it doesn't have to add it itself. But I had a very weird experience with SUSE. So if you install SUSE Leap, so the way I understand it, even though the bootloader is grub, there is another built-in bootloader inside the kernel which is able to boot itself. So if in refined I don't select the grub entry but select the kernel on the root partition, it can boot itself. The kernel can boot itself without grub. Because how in /boot there are two files. One of these the initial RAM file system. The other one is I think the kernel itself. I'm not sure which one, but either one of those two have a built-in bootloader, and
They
then
use a
refined
EFI stub built right into the kernel.
Yeah,
you can actually do.
Refined can use that to bootstrap the system without ever having to touch grub. Now the interesting stuff is when I installed OpenSUSE Tumbleweed, for some reason Refined wasn't able to pick up on that kernel. So the only new entry that I got on Refined was the grub entry on the EFI partition. So if I had to go into Refined, then from Refined select the grub entry, then from grub start Tumbleweed, and for somehow that's not an issue with Leap. So whenever if I want, so I don't use grab for any of my systems. Refined works perfectly without grab with Arch, Void, Ubuntu, Mint, Debian, Fedora, everything except Tumbleweed, and I can't figure out why.
Well, you got me interested in that. I'm going to try that on a virtual machine or something.
Yeah, Tumbleweed interests me because so many people have said, unlike Arch and Manjaro and some of these other rolling distros, that it's extremely stable. So you can go for long periods of time without updating it, which currently that's kind of how it happens on my system. My secondary OS, I don't boot into it very often. I tend to stay on Mint, but when I boot into it and run the update, I don't want to. I'd like to have a rolling OS, but I don't want it to brick itself.
Okay, Regolith gets GNOME 40 now.
Oh, that makes sense because Ubuntu has that as well. So the way updating on Tumbleweed works, essentially they recommend you to use not to just use a refresh or an update on Zypper, but there's basically the equivalent of dist upgrade. So the command that you would use on Tumbleweed Leap to upgrade from one major version to the other is the command that you're supposed to use, at least everywhere where people mention it, they recommend that, because you can do like the normal Zypper refresh and Zypper update, but there's a Zypper dist update.
Yeah, I'm trying to learn it all right now. And then you have the Pacman repositories. Does that replace, or is that
not sure.
That sort of like RPM Fusion on Fedora, where it's
Pacman repositories on OpenSUSE?
No, it's written with a CK, PACK man.
It's so like
okay.
Arch. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I think there's only a couple of hundred packages in both RPM Fusion and Pacman, so it might be similar. Also, with SUSE, there are some things like that are called home repos. So when you go to a repo, for example, when I go to the OpenSUSE website and search for a package, I did for I think Refined and ULauncher. I didn't get any official repo matches, but when I clicked on the community repos, it gave me a couple of matches which are like unofficial. So then you can list the home repos, which are essentially every user who wants to have a home repo gets and maintain stuff in there. So at first sight it looks
a bit
more
like you are.
Yes, but but it's organized per but each maintainer gets their own repo, and you can choose which ones you want to add.
Yeah, but you can do the one click on also on the web browser if you go into that.
I tried that, and it wanted to add like 5 more repos that were unneeded. So, and I went to the official OpenSUSE Telegram channel, and there's some guy there who I think is a developer who also happens to be Hungarian, at least by his name, told me that the one-click install has been really buggy for Yast, and they don't recommend using it at all. So what I did, I just either copied the home repo URL and pasted it to the repos. What I did is just the file that it downloaded, the one-click file, I opened it in the text editor, and there was of course the list of repos it's right to add, but I only really needed the first one, so I just copied that and put it into Yast.
That's interesting because I was running this in a live environment, and I wanted to get Spotify just to test it, and I did the one-click install, and it worked out fine. And it didn't add a bunch of extra repos, so I don't know.
I like to use the Fira fonts, which are the default fonts.
How long you guys will be on the show?
I mean, today or at all. I mean,
at least 2 more minutes.
Then after that, I should go back to editing the show.
After this show, I'll change OS. I'm planning to hop onto Regolith.
Anytime you want to...
I'm going to have to get going to it anyway. So.
Anytime you guys want to drop off, I'm cool with it. I can leave this running if I need to. It's not a big deal.
Before we leave, who's handling news? Who's handling security? We should probably get that ironed out because right now it's kind of like a mishmash.
As usual, I know that I am not the one handling security because I'm not big on security stuff.
I say it's Josh's turn.
Josh, you look like someone who's big on security stuff.
See, you agree. It's Me? Josh's turn.
Are you going to be on next week on the show?
Me? Yeah, I'm gonna try to be. Yeah, definitely.
Oh, great. Then you can fill out the security section.
Oh boy.
I mean, at least you give me an impression of someone who is who knows his stuff in Linux security. So when Leo,
I tried to.
What's the opposite of gaslighting?
And
the problem is that when Leo stopped being on the show, we lost our security guy.
yeah,
Right. Yeah.
and news guy, because he was both.
Yeah. We
But
lost
you
our
should-
our
Oh,
Linux
you
guy.
have me have the news guy. Sometimes I post some.
Well,
Yeah.
then handle the news section for the next show, and Josh, if you want to, handle security and handle getting Bo back on the show.
Yeah.
Did Moss also say that he was interested in being back
Moss
on the show?
is saying he was going to be back on the show, but it might not be this next one. It might be the first one in January.
Yeah, but then we maybe end up with 8 people on a show.
It's never going to end up being 8 people. And
Yeah.
if it does, that'll only be for one show, and it'll be a long
Yep.
show, and it won't be that bad. It'll whittle itself back down.
Yeah.
Okay, at least I'm expecting for the first show of the new year, like Jan shows, to have more people.
One thing
And
I started
Bill
doing.
has joined on because he's spent far too much money to to go away.
To not do it.
I'm not going anywhere.
He's like, this is at least a 6-month commitment.
Right?
It's also nice to have another art user, so Joe can.
I'm
Well, you say
hoping.
that. I
So
thought
Joe
to
can
myself,
oppress me
well,
less.
they're gonna be. I ought to install Mint somewhere so that I know what I'm on about. You know, when somebody.
That's
brings
not
that up.
important.
I
I
used
think
Mint for
Mint
so
might be
long that
like-
I just consider myself a
Yeah,
Mint user.
it's
so.
it's not important
Right.
to
No,
install
I
Mint.
really like Mint.
Well, it is part of my story
you
in the beginning because I think Tony was saying on last week's episode that was the reason some people switched to Mint in the early days was because you install Ubuntu and you didn't get any codecs, and
Yeah.
it was a faff to get them up and running. And,
And
he
well-
was right. That was exactly what
Like
led me to
Norbert was
Mint.
saying, I think it was Norbert that was saying it earlier. It's just it was so much like Windows as well that it was really an easy
Yeah.
transition
No,
from.
I didn't use Mint, but my first distro was Linux Lite, which I chose because at the time I had to find something for a really old laptop, and the name Lite, I assumed that it was meant for old hardware, and of course it is because it's XFCE. But no, I'm probably not the one who mentioned
but-
it about Mint.
One thing, you can run even the most lightweight desktop environment on high-end hardware.
That's
If
cute.
you want to save, the space for using something else, like 8 gigabits of RAM is more than enough to run GNOME. But if you
Well,
want
I
to
am
save that
running
RAM
GNOME.
for compiling,
Just for the show's sake, so I am absolved of news and security for this one, right? Because I gave
Absolved?
the last time and I got thrown under the
No,
bus.
no, no.
for
Just
that.
because they're doing it doesn't mean you're not in charge of it.
Yeah.
Right. So
And we call this delegation. It runs downhill.
Yep.
I might also put some things
is Congress?
into news.
so what I was saying is like
Also, Nishant, I'm running GNOME with 4 gigs of RAM on this.
that is a tablet. It will of course have different performance.
Without any swap. Because the only time I tried using swap, it was basically not using it at all. So I wasn't about to waste the
is
non
that-
upgradable
is that
a-
SSD
is it-
swap.
Okay, is that
Weird
ARM
flex,
64?
but okay.
Different architecture. Come on, man.
No, it's x64, so it's not ARM. It's an i5 CPU.
they're proper desktop
Yep.
powered tablets. That's a full-on proper machine right there. You
Yeah,
can-
Except
It's
it
closer
gets
to a
hot and
laptop.
the fans get loud and stuff.
Intel. What can you expect? More heat, more toast. You can cook an egg on them sometimes.
Hey, a while ago AMD was the same way, all right? I had the
I
little
had an AMD
processors for a long
Phenom.
time.
I haven't used older AMD,
Yeah.
so cannot
No,
comment
the
on
AMD Phenom 2 series that would cook eggs.
I couldn't sit here and do this
Oh.
podcast with that thing running because the fan
What about
noise
the
was
what
so
about
high.
the bulldozer?
Josh,
That one was
other
bad.
Josh uses Phenom X2 on his computer, I think.
X4, yeah, I got it on my media PC. As a matter of fact, it wouldn't post beginning last night, so I brought it in the kitchen and I decided to pull out a RAM stick and plug it back in, and it worked. And then I put the RAM stick back in, and it worked again. And I have no idea.
Yeah, but
How's
those
the
things are
heat and
notoriously
everything?
hot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, but
they,
Nishan,
well,
did you
that,
say?
sorry to bash Intel around. It's just that AMD also gets heated up
I
on
Nishan,
my
did you
machine
men-
on Windows 11.
2001, I had a Thunderbird Athlon,
I
yeah,
have been
650 megahertz processor, and I've been AMD since. So
I have been using Intel for so long, like since the 2002 PC days, the Pentium 4. Now it feels surreal to actually change into AMD. Go to Team Red
Well,
from
I
Team
got
Red.
I got a Ryzen in this, so
same.
I'm on Intel because I built this PC 2 years ago, and because I wasn't following any CPU or gaming related news, somehow I wasn't aware
No, Norbert, you're
of
fine.
how good value Ryzen's are. So my next one might be AMD, but now I'm on
I
Intel.
came 5 generations too late into Ryzen games. I didn't start like from 1600 series or 2600
But like I
series.
said, I only became aware of how good Ryzen was 2 years ago, which was so late, I would say.
well, Ryzen
So I'm
started
on
being
ninth gen
good like
Intel.
2-3 years ago. So the price to
Okay.
performance
Yeah.
is a
Because
recent thing
5
for,
years.
Because when
for
I-
I'm five
Ryzen.
but I-
years late to the Ryzen party, to be
For a-
really honest.
2700 for 160 something dollars, 8 core, 16 thread. That's incredible value.
Yeah.
You aren't going to get that with Intel.
Yeah.
when I built this PC and I
But then
mentioned it to people,
what their benchmarking is, it'll be Intel will be better than AMD. The i7, i9 level.
They
will be
always
better
their
than
numbers always say that they're faster, but you know what? Their prices are always higher too. So
Yeah,
You
they're
know-
But in
proud of-
gaming segment,
And you
gamers
can't-
may go with Intel.
you can't trust
The thing about, I've heard about Intel,
that
they
creates it.
the way I understand it, does both Intel and AMD release a new generation of CPUs each year, basically.
No, I don't think architecture doesn't change over 5-6 years.
Because-
I think the
Because when
nanometer stuff.
the Intel came out with 12th generation, it claimed that they are faster than AMD, but they were also released and
Only in
announced way later
specific
than AMD.
benchmarks.
All right, guys, I don't mean to interrupt, but I gotta go.
Yeah. All right.
Okay,
Okay.
bye bye.
All right, so
Hey,
see ya.
Josh.
And
Thanks
you-
for joining.
Yeah,
Ishan,
thank
did-
you.
And like I was saying, you can't ever trust benchmarks that are done by the company that made the processor that's trying to make money by selling the processor. I mean, even
So is it same like Apple comparing their M1 with their Intel?
okay, yes, exact, yeah, but
Yes,
M1's a
the
little bit
M1
different.
charts were also ambiguous. on the
Yes,
numbers.
yes. But if you there was some Linus Tech Tip videos I think last year or the year before specifically talking about Intel's benchmarks and how they skewed their benchmarks against AMD specifically
That's right.
by choosing older AMD hardware to compare it to.
Oh, so you mean to say Intel 10th gen was compared to AMD 2nd gen?
Something like that. Something crazy like that. But there weren't any like straight up valid one-to-one benchmarking things that you could look at there. Plus, when Intel does their benchmarking, they're going to be in perfect situations with perfect hardware, and they're going to be running perfect or as close to perfect tests as possible that their hardware is specifically geared for, not real world applications or anything like that. So you
So-
cannot
That was
trust.
one of the big controversies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You
So
can't.
somebody posted a photo of Apple M1 versus Apple Intel on the MacBook, and people are commenting like Apple doesn't do benchmarking based on real life conditions.
None of the
I read
companies do.
some good news on Reddit. It says Linus Tech Tips are planning to include Linux compatibility in future hardware reviews, which is really
Oh my.
nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
It's also a bold thing to do.
Yeah. And
Okay,
back
so
then,
I-
they
Holding
were
to
also
it.
using software that was optimized to their processors. So it skewed the benchmark result already just right there. And that's
So
one of
what
the
about-
reasons that it was just
What do you guys
support
think? Is it the similar thing for Apple MacBook M1 versus Apple MacBook Intel? The Intel Max versus M1 Max?
I have no
I
idea.
don't know.
I'm not really a Mac user, but
No, because that photo which I told you about, people are commenting that Apple does not do benchmarking tests under real life. test conditions.
None of the companies do, is what we just said. None of the companies take real life into account. You cannot trust any of the companies that are benchmarking their own things when their goal is to sell those things and make a profit. You can't trust them.
Okay, so you mean to say I have to wait for like Linus or somebody else to review them?
As soon as the processors come out, people are going to start benchmarking in real world situations, and they're going to put out reviews.
Yeah, Phronix. That's a great one. Yeah, synthetic benchmarks are only going to tell you so much. You need to see real world workloads before you make a determination.
Okay.
So yeah, you don't want to be, well, okay. Early adopters are also the ones that are beta testers, essentially.
Okay, so am I a kind of early adopter because as soon as 5500U series launched in India, I bought it.
I guess so.
The what? Sorry? The what
Yeah,
launched?
the Ryzen 5 5500 series. I bought it like 1 or 2 days after that.
Yeah, that would make you an early adopter.
And when you're early adopter, you might run into something like...
So it's been like...
Windows...
Yeah, Windows 10 it was. Then I switched to Linux on it. Then I distro hopped, I went back to Windows. Because looking for the perfect distro for, you know...
For the time there were those performance drawbacks on AMD with Windows 11.
No, that performance drawback is what I am telling you about. My processor goes full heated up on Windows 11 with 100% CPU occupancy all the time, even though if I'm not running anything.
Is there a proper reasonable argument for switching to Windows 11 while Windows 10 is still supported?
Mine is a OEM hardware, so I got free upgrade to Windows 11. Whatever hardware you buy this year will be eligible for Windows 11.
Right now, really, no. There's no major reason to upgrade from 10 to 11.
So I did that because I needed to upgrade my license to Windows 11.
Yeah, he's just talking about day-to-day use. There just really isn't a reason to go from 10 to 11 right now.
Yes, because I switched to Linux a lot. So just to preserve that license, I just upgraded it for that sake. OEM license. That's it.
Sheer morbid curiosity.
There you go.
It was curiosity plus saving the license on the next version of Windows rather than being on Windows 10.
There's reasons
you want
not
to center
because you lose performance.
Yeah, that's whatever. It's fine. If it wasn't for Garmin needing their stupid little app to update their GPSs and Logitech needing their stupid little app to configure their universal remote controls, I wouldn't need Windows at all. These things could easily be done through a browser, but these companies just refuse.
I have a friend. He's been running Linux all his life. He's the same age as me. He keeps a Windows virtual machine around for the sole purpose of configuring his keyboard and mouse, maybe once a year.
Yeah, like my keyboard, if I want to update the firmware on it, I gotta do it in Windows. Or if I want to, make the backlights all pretty or in a specific pattern, I gotta do it from Windows. If I want to reset the USB dongle for this headset so that it works with a different headset, then I gotta do it from Windows. Things like that.
My brother gave me his...
to become bigger than it is currently.
Yeah.
My brother gave me his previous mouse, and I just did some DPI resets on it, and basically, then I never really touched the. It's a Windows only config program also, but I'm not gaming with it, so I just had to set it up once and then not.
But Linux has those DPI programs for the keyboard.
Maybe, but I'm not. I don't really need that because all I need is a reasonable setting and adjusting the mouse speed in the OS.
I found out about OpenRazor last night, which is a program for Razer hardware on Linux, and it actually covers a lot of the Razer hardware, but for right now it does not cover the Razer Nari Ultimates. This is a Razer Nari Ultimate,
Yeah.
But this one is not working under OpenRazor yet. So, yeah, custom scripts.
To go back to Borderlands, what are you seeing in terms of performance difference between Windows and Linux?
Anymore, I'm not really seeing a performance difference. Before, it was all like graphics performance. Now, with Borderlands 3, I do get some artifacting because of Vulkan processing. I'm allowing that to go on in the background. Yeah.
Oh, preparing the Vulkan chip, Vulkan something shaders
Yeah.
in the Steam.
But overall, the performance is extremely similar anymore. Like I said, it used to be the graphics quality was just plain better on Windows, but now I'm not seeing that anymore.
Is the naming of Vulcan a Star Trek reference on purpose?
I'm
Yes.
not sure.
Could be. So right now, if I install a tiling window manager, I wouldn't be able to game, right?
We need more open hardware.
Why wouldn't you be able to game?
i3WM doesn't support gaming as well, but it does support.
I
I don't know how to like run games.
I don't think it makes a difference as long as you got the right driver.
Is it composite or non-compositing?
Non-compositor.
i3WM, no compositor on it.
Are you on NVIDIA?
May or may not.
Yeah,
make a
NVIDIA.
Because I was about to recommend Sway, but that's Wayland because it is a compositing window manager. But
I'll try it. I'll try Regolith. I'll report my findings on gaming, and then I'll decide whether to stay on it or not.
Can someone name a compositing window manager that's on X? Because the ones I looked at.
i3WM is on X. Trust me. I think.
Compositing.
Yes, but i3 is not compositing. Because the only compositing window manager I managed to find that was tiling is Sway. But that's Wayland. So I'm looking for an X-based compositing window manager. Because like I said, I tried i3.
That's a non-starter because, I mean, the whole point behind those has always just been for developers and things like that. K-Win script
better
on
off
top of Plasma.
What
But
about
it's
BS?
not tiling.
Bill, what about BSPWM?
That's not compositing either.
Yeah,
So-
you're probably better
Okay.
off with a lightweight DE than a full-on.
I like
Window
Regolith's
manager.
integration. I like Regolith's integration with GNOME. That's what I like in that distribution.
Maybe I should give Regolith a try. Can you install it, the Regolith stuff over on top of any distro, or is it just Ubuntu?
Only Ubuntu for now. Because Ubuntu, take the base Ubuntu, install Regolith DE. It's a desktop environment as well for Ubuntu. And you
Well,
can just select.
it's something like Cosmic. It's GNOME, but it's not really GNOME because
It's just
or maybe
for known
Budgie that.
services. You know,
Yes.
stuff on the back.
Yeah.
So it's
So
like
it's a bit.
it's like
It's
you
the
replace.
same as Budgie.
Well, Budgie's
No.
got a lot of GNOME code in there.
Yes,
So
but
Desktop.
So let me
Yep.
tell you one thing. It will have the panel as i3 panel. Okay, the normal stock i3 stuff. Only the windows are GNOME. The kind of windows.
No, it's you're not going to have any GNOME visible stuff.
No, when
You're not
I
gonna have GNOME
open
shell.
what's
sorry,
interesting
Bill.
about Budgie is that when you install Budgie, it pulls a lot of GNOME dependencies. But when you have the full GNOME package installed, and then you try to install the Budgie desktop on top of that, it only needs one single package, the Budgie desktop package, which is like a couple of megabytes. So everything Budgie specific is only in that one package. Then it pulls everything else from the GNOME stack, which is interesting.
Okay, Norbert, like you said, you replaced your XFCE's window manager, right? From Mutter
Yeah.
to something else. So it's
So is
similar.
Regolith the same? Ah,
Yeah, Regolith the same. It will be like GNOME. Windows will be like GNOME Windows, which you know from GNOME 40.
But what does Regolith use for compositing? Is it Compton or PyCom or something like that?
I haven't seen that yet. I would
Because-
go much more deeper into that.
Compton is a good option.
Okay, guys, I'll be hopping off and switching over for today, and I'll join you.
Okay, I
next
think
week.
I'm also going to get back to editing the show
It's 4
so it
a.m.
can
over
be-
here right now.
out already. No, my New Year's resolution will be having each episode ready by Wednesday as it's supposed to be.
That's not a
Because
problem. You can hand over
I mean,
something to Josh if he can edit.
but the thing is that I really like editing.
No,
Audio.
split the work. I mean, like if you're
Oh,
busy, anybody can take it over now. So
maybe.
split the work between two crew members. Okay, Joe, Bill, I'll be hopping up on now.
Okay.
I'll
I
see
will
ya.
do this
Seeing ya.
episode and the next ones, but I will assert
Yeah, I'll
everything.
come for
Bye.
the 26th episode. Uh, okay, see you next week then.
Okay.
See you then.
See you next week.
Bye bye.
See you.
Hey,
Bye.
Bill, make sure you have Audacity installed.
I do.
Okay. Then you're good to
And
go.
also we have on before so next Saturday we also have a meeting at the same time when we talk about what we'll be doing the next day, Sunday. That
we
we're
don't.
not streaming. We just
Yeah, we don't stream
So
that
what
one.
do you need? Do you need like a FLAC or what is it you want?
Yeah, it's
set
gonna end
up
up
on
flat.
Audacity? Okay.
We'll walk you through the setup on
yeah.
Okay.
next
So,
Saturday.
you just have to if you install Audacity, then it can export to FLAC by default if you select it. I have an interesting question. So even today, when you install Ubuntu or Mint, there's the option in the installer to include codecs or not. But what if I don't include those codecs, but then later install something like VSC or MPV? It still installs the codecs, right?
Yeah.
Good question. I've never
Well,
not hit that box.
because that box only seems to be present on Ubuntu and Ubuntu-based distros.
Yeah.
No,
Because whenever I'm on like Arch or Debian, I just install whatever video player I want to install, and it pulls everything it needs.
No, way
So-
back in the day, you had to install all the codecs manually.
Oh, it was
Why-
a pain.
Yeah.
Wait, so they were not in the main repos, so VRC couldn't just pull them?
You
Right,
had to
there
add
was some.
a PPA.
Yeah. There was some legal issues with including those codecs, so you had to go out and find them and install them
Or
manually.
just install Mint, and Mint just worked,
Yeah.
which, you know.
Yeah, because MP3 used to be a proprietary codec. Like now it's open, but
It's like, well, the patent has run out. I'm not.
yeah, the
100%.
patent right now.
Yeah.
Sometimes I think about how it's a weird thought, but maybe one day like the green aliens would visit us, not green in the sense of like skin color, but green as a political movement, and they would like, okay, so basically because there are very few habitable planets in the galaxy, now the Earth is a protected area, which means that they would outlaw any polluting and violence as well. And that is, on top of that, it would be nice if they forced everything to go open source on the planet, because it would.
Right.
It's just a weird thought, but
I've
mean,
often thought, what if everything was handled the way open source software is? You know, what if medical innovations worked the way open source did, where you had
well,
a
the thing
GitHub
about
with, you know, something
think
like
about-
GitHub
so-
where you're doing all of your research into new medicines and therapies and things like that right out in the open.
I believe there was a guy on a TED Talk that did that. He decided to open source his cancer. So he went from shamans and witch doctors all the way up to, typical Western practitioners, and kind of took ideas from everybody and implemented a strategy based off of all of their input, and wound up getting his cancer to go into remission because of it.
Well, look at that. Yeah.
I mean, didn't Tesla also open source their specifications for making for the electric cars, or maybe it was the self-driving? I'm not sure. But I think their
know.
specifications for
don't
electric cars
know,
were
but-
also like publicly available.
Well,
No,
Bill
what's
and I are
interesting
rooting for
is-
that to fail because we'd be out of a job.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Yeah, but what's interesting is with open source. I mean, there's a lot of, for example, with the coronavirus, there was a movement that the majority of, so whenever there's has a scientific paper on a topic. It's not necessarily medical, but written by like biologists, and then the paper is finished. But then it has to go through a peer review process before it can be accepted for publication. Then it's a couple of months until it gets published. So there are websites that are repositories for preprints, which are not approved papers. So as soon as the paper is finished, they upload it there. Anyone can see it. And there was a moment, and the majority of the coronavirus papers became open like this. So there are some publishers if you want to have access for a full like 20-minute scientific paper, you have to either have a subscription or pay like $30 for a single paper, or if you have or unless you have free access through an institution. For example, there are a couple of sites where I have free access because of my university, but the majority, I would say maybe 90% of the coronavirus-related papers are free to access. That is kind of what you're talking about with an open source, like in medicine. And because a lot of times when the coronavirus paper would have to go through like all the process of getting published properly in a journal, it would take months. But you really need those findings as quick as possible to develop vaccines and the treatments and stuff. So most of those papers, most of those researchers who were working on coronavirus-related stuff would just get papers from these preprint repositories. Because it doesn't matter if it's not approved, because it can still be relevant as soon as possible. But yeah, big companies that have patented medicine and stuff, they're not going to open source anything.
Yeah, and I think that's the problem. Well, from society's point of view, that's a problem that, we're kind of at the mercy of whoever can get there on their own the fastest, because everybody's trying to they're trying to get to the finish line so that they can be the one to rake in all the money. That's unfortunately.
Isn't having everything go open source a form of communism, but not in the bad sense? Because on paper, when communism was invented, it was supposed to be a good thing, but it was never implemented well. That's why it was bad.
Yeah.
As far as I understand it.
And since there's human beings involved, there's always going to be
people that want power, and that's why communism will never work.
No.
And there's also people who say, well, if they work for something, they have... I mean, in a way, people who makes their stuff proprietary have the right to do so, because, I mean, open source is basically up to your conscience. If you make something accessible.
And you're wanting to share it. You're wanting to... Yeah.
I mean, the NVIDIA drivers being closed source is a good example of why things should be open source, but other stuff might... So
I really don't understand NVIDIA's point of view on that either, because, I mean, from a cost perspective, making their drivers open source would... how many geeks out there would be quite willing to write their code for them for free just so that they get better gaming experience?
Maybe they have some code in there that people don't want to see that it's in there, or maybe there's code in there that they don't have, or maybe they have some code in there that they don't fully have the rights to make open source.
Yeah, that's always a possibility.
NVIDIA is an interesting company.
All right, fellas, well, I'm going to call it a day.
Yeah, let's get on to that time.
All right.
Me too.
All right, I'll see you on Saturday then.
Saturday,
Yep. Okay.
Yep.
See you guys then.
All right. Thanks for joining, Bill.
Yep. Thank you.
All right, I'm ending the live stream.
All
right, guys.
Bye.
All right.
Thanks everybody that listened.
We managed to talk about politics today as well.
We always talk about politics.
Yeah. No, a few weeks ago we went into like